December 4th. Glad you're with us. College football playoff rankings are in. Only one more to go after this one. Greg McElroy was on the college football playoff rankings show last night. G-Mac, what did you like? What did you dislike? What do you feel good about? What do you feel bad about?
Feel pretty good about a lot of things. Explain to me this. Like, I know we had a little bit of a conversation about South Carolina yesterday morning. I didn't think they had a real argument. You believe that they did. They are now fourth out of the four that are up for debate. Are we good with where South Carolina's at? Or do you feel like there should be more of a debate to be had between them and the other three?
I mean, I think we could debate it here if we wanted to, but I don't think it matters in the grand scheme of them making the playoff.
No, it definitely doesn't matter. But I think I'm just going from 4 to 1 and why they did what they did. I feel like South Carolina is pretty obvious why they're where they're at. Like I know the South Carolina fans up in arms, like shocked. Why are you shocked? The two teams you're being measured against beat you. I guess I just don't understand like why that was such a shocking result for South Carolina fans. Not trying to belittle or anything. I'm trying to figure out like what am I missing here as it relates to South Carolina outside of them finishing strong. And they point to circumstantial losses where, well, if Lenore Stiller's ankle didn't get hurt, or if they complete the 2-point conversion, or if they had this, then fine, okay, it'd be a little different. But they also are not like they've needed 2-minute drives to win games. They've needed some heroics at times to win games, and they've also needed total blunders by other teams to win games as well, like Alabama gift wrapping them 5 points, giving up a Hail Mary and a 4th and 9, and not recovering an onside kick. So I guess moving from 14 down to 11, are we okay with where South Carolina is?
I mean, listen, I understand from a technical standpoint when you look at wins, losses, things like that, head to head, if that's what you want to weigh and you put them there, that's fine. I mean, I don't love it, but I get it. I mean, listen, like I said, you can run in circles on this whole thing. I sit here and tell you that I think they should be ahead of them. Okay, they lost to them. All right, well, if that's the criteria that you like the most, put them ahead of them.
But what metric would support you? What metric would support you?
I don't want a metric to do any of this. It's the teams that I think are the best right now. That's how I would grade it, how I would judge it. So,
did you feel like the win against Clemson and/or Missouri was a convincing victory?
I'm not saying that I'm convinced by 1,000 miles South Carolina is better than Alabama or Ole Miss. I just am not convinced by 1,000 miles that Alabama is better than Ole Miss or South Carolina. I mean, I don't feel passionate about any of those, really. I mean, it's like I said, it is literally bang your head against the wall 3 times, run 3 circles around a totem pole, start conversation again. That's all it is.
Well, bang your head against the wall 3 times is an appropriate way of describing what this all is. We are comparing flawed teams. And that's what I think, that's the point I'm trying to prove. Like everyone's trying to say, well, South Carolina should be this. Oh, well, Ole Miss should be this. Oh, well, Bama didn't do this. Oh, well, Miami has this. Guys, all these teams have flaws. Like that's the thing that when we expanded to 12, you open the door for super flawed teams to get do-overs. Like that was what the 12-team playoff, in its 4-team playoff, there was 0 possibility of teams like this with obvious flaws to be in the field. Why? Because it was about the regular season. It was about making sure that you ran a fine line that flirted with perfection. That was the only way you had a chance. And now, when we've expanded to 12, I think a lot of good has come of it, I might add. I think there's a lot of benefits to expanding to 12. But one of the benefits, one of the downfalls of the 12-team playoff is that we are arguing with these strong and emphatic arguments on teams that, frankly, don't really deserve this opportunity. Like, let's just be real. Like, they really don't deserve it. And even the most diehard Alabama fan will tell you, yeah, glad to be in, but let's be real. You know what I mean? Even the most diehard Miami fan will tell you, yeah, we did. Yeah, we're lucky to be in. Thank goodness they didn't call that targeting at Cal. Thank goodness they didn't, appropriately do and handle replay in 2 of our games that led to victories for us. And I think most Ole Miss fans will tell you, yeah, you know what? We probably shouldn't have gone to 3 for 6 on short yardage situations against Florida. Or maybe we shouldn't have tried to have Jordan Watkins block an all SEC defensive end on 4th and 1 against LSU. Or maybe we shouldn't have let Barryon Brown get in one-on-one against our worst corner in a 4th and 7 backed up on their own 20. Like, I mean, all these, like, you basically screwed up. And now you've been given new life, which is great. It's a great story of redemption and resurrection. All that is phenomenal. But let's also acknowledge that we are comparing teams that have significant flaws. And there might be one team whose ceiling's higher. That is Bama, because of the wins that they have. And that's why they're in. I don't think it's that complicated.
Yeah, but that's not why people are going to look at it that way. People are going to look at it that way. And they're going to say, this is Alabama getting benefit of the doubt again. That's what they're going to see, and that's what they're going to say. And that's, listen, I don't know how much reality there is to that, but that doesn't mean that there's any reason that people aren't going to look at it that way. They just are. They're going to look at it as, and I understand, like, by the way, Miami fans wanting to cherry pick close wins down the stretch is hilarious when you go back and look at some of the close wins that could have been losses earlier in the season. But like Dennis Dodd, he tweeted out 12 hours ago, Alabama is all but in. Only once in the 11-year history of the college football playoff has a team that completed its season been jumped by another team that hasn't finished its season in the final rankings. Miami types are furious tonight. Like, okay,
yeah,
it's fine.
I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. Like, guess what? Don't lose to Georgia Tech. It's pretty simple. And if you're Alabama and had the roles been reversed and you would have been on the outside looking in and Miami's in front of you at 10-2 and you're sitting there saying, well, Miami hasn't beaten a team in the top 25. Why the heck are they in? They haven't beaten anybody. They got lucky against Cal. They got lucky against Virginia Tech. Like, they just haven't beaten anybody. Why are they in? Okay, well, maybe if we wouldn't have lost to Oklahoma by 3 touchdowns, we wouldn't be on the outside looking in either. Like, it's every single one of these teams is in control of their own destiny, and they've all screwed it up. And Bama, because of Miami's screw-up last weekend at Syracuse, they have new lease on life. And you can say, the thing that irritates me is the brand bias. Like, Bama beat Georgia, South Carolina, and Missouri, 3 teams that are ranked in the top 20. Miami beat nobody. Ole Miss beat Georgia. That's it. And then South Carolina beat Clemson and Missouri. Like, this is not that difficult. Bama has the most good wins. It's always been about good wins. It's never been about bad losses, dating back to the beginning of the committee. Wins have always been weighed heavier than losses, always. And this is not new. It's just we're having to compare teams that have a whole heck of a lot more losses than we have in the past because we felt the need to expand.
So does it come down after what you saw last night to Alabama, Miami, SMU for the final spot to get in? Is that kind of the way that you see it?
Yeah. I almost think that you can eliminate Miami at this point.
So you think Miami's out?
I think so. And I think it told me all I needed to know when Duke and Louisville were not in the top 25 last night. Meanwhile, we have Memphis in the top 25. Give me a break. And Army still in the top 25. Like, are you kidding me? And you don't have a Duke, you don't have a Louisville, you don't have an LSU. No, you have those teams. So the second I saw Duke not in and Syracuse not in, I started to think to myself, Bama's about to be ahead of Miami because the ACC is just not garnering the respect.
It's fair. Ward Manuel last night on how the committee will evaluate SMU relative to Alabama if they lose the ACC title game.
That is something that we will decide in the room at the conclusion of those games when we evaluate what happens in the championship. I can't go into the future and tell you exactly how the outcome of that discussion will be. It depends on the outcome of the game and how it's played and the results themselves. And so we'll just have to wait and see how the committee is going to analyze that game and, depending on the outcome, where things will go in terms of rankings and who and how people will move or will not move.
So that's basically him saying what you just said about Alabama and SMU, GMAC, and how that's going to look. So that problem seems to be solved from Ward Manuel himself.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah.
Yeah, I can kind of live with it. A lot of people up in arms about it. I'm more surprised he said it than I am anything else. But at the same time, it's probably the way it likely should be. If you're not playing more games, should you really be moved? Probably not. The one thing that I do think is interesting is I have long held the belief, and had this conversation with Golden Domer yesterday, that the SEC and the Big Ten championship participants would not be negatively impacted by a poor performance in the championship game, because that de-incentivizes making the championship game. I have also wondered whether or not the ACC would be afforded the same benefit of the doubt, and in the event in which SMU were to lose this weekend, would the 11-1 SMU Mustangs, after a loss 11-2, would they be penalized for a poor performance in the ACC championship game? And I am still of the belief that SMU would probably still get in over Alabama because they're 8 and Bama's 11. I don't know if they will or not. I just think that's probably what the committee's going to do. Do you agree?
I feel like it, and I feel like one of the reasons that probably happens, because remember we all lost our minds how far Georgia fell down earlier in the season. I'm trying to think if there was another team that had a massive slide that we all got upset about. But look at Ohio State.
Miami fell 8 spots when they lost last time.
Yeah, and 6 this time. But Ohio State only goes down 4 spots to number 6. So I just don't see. I'm not convinced that they'll drop that far, because SMU of some of the other teams that we're talking about actually has, I think, some better wins on their schedule. So we'll see. It may depend on how that game looks, but I don't think it's a given that they're going down. But Ward Manuel did talk about the fact that might be something that does take place. It could happen. The committee chair last night discussing that they could fall down that far. Also, why Miami is above Ole Miss and South Carolina.
In Miami, up until the last 3 weeks, they've had a very good season. They've lost 2 in the last 3 weeks. Mississippi, for example, has the win against Georgia, as you know, a win against South Carolina. But they have a loss against Kentucky, the loss in overtime against LSU. At times, their offense is putting up a lot of points. Defense leads the country in a lot of sacks. Miami, top offense in the country with 44 points and over 500 yards per game. So, I mean, it's really close. It's not just, one data point over the other. We just we do take a look at their body of work to evaluate them and make decisions. Obviously, Mississippi is going to be ahead of South Carolina with the head-to-head same record. And so as we evaluated them, that's how the vote came out in terms of Miami, Mississippi, and then South Carolina.
All right, so there you go, Ward Manuel, just on why some of those teams fall. I mean, if you wanted to oversimplify it and not use the eye test, you would just simply say South Carolina lost to Alabama, lost to Ole Miss. Okay, you're out. If you look at the resumes between Ole Miss and Alabama, Ole Miss, you're out. It's that easy. If that's what you wanted to go by. If you wanted to go a little bit further than that, as far as how those teams playing down the stretch, what happened, it might be a little bit of a different discussion. And I think that's where some people get sideways, Greg, because they think that maybe it just shouldn't be about the math, which I see some people saying they want the BCS back. So I don't really know what people want.
I think it's a combination. I don't think it needs to be necessarily one metric. I think it should be a handful of metrics that are all weighed equally. And every single committee member should, my assessment of these teams is different than your assessment of these teams, is different than Saybear's, is different than Damien's, is different than Haney's, is different than Landrum's and Pat's and Molly's and Conrad's. All of our assessments are different. If we all sat together in a room, they would all be very, very different. And the Ward Manual is tasked with the impossible task of having to go and explain with a singular voice why they made decisions. He might not agree with the order that the committee came up with, and he has to go answer questions. That's a very difficult spot to be in. But at the same time, I do think it'd be helpful for the committee to basically put out some type of video or some piece of media that helps people understand how they arrive at the decisions that they arrive at. Because it does sometimes feel like week to week they change their criteria. And that can be very frustrating for many people. And for me, as someone that has to interpret these rankings to the consumer, and you, Cole, has to do the exact same thing, it's frustrating for me, the inconsistencies we get from a week-to-week basis. Like, it was all about win-loss record, and then this week they decided to value strength of schedule. Like, where'd that come from? So, I don't know, man. Like, I get very much how hard this job is, but I do think they don't do themselves any favors when it comes to the way they articulate the decisions that they make.
That's why if I'm on this committee, and if I'm Ward Manuel and they put me on as the chairperson of this committee, the main thing I'm leaning on when I sit there every week is eye test.
Yeah.
Because guess what
that.
you can't do with that?
Argue against it?
You can't. It's how I see it. It's how we liked it. When we saw this team turn the ball over this many times, or we saw this team do this, we like the way that they handled this situation, and I like the way that their defensive line looked here. You can't argue with that. You just can't. But it's people want numbers. People want, like you said, quantifiable information. People want information that's cut and dry, black and white, and it's not always like that. It just isn't. So, I think it kind of works itself out. But SMU loses. It's gonna be a really interesting Sunday. Really interesting Sunday.
But I think the reason why people want numbers and metrics, because they believe that people are inherently biased. That's why. Like, you, regardless of what, you could come out and be the most diehard Penn State fan ever. And you could speak that way and do a freaking show with a Penn State flat bill 100% of the time. But if you live in Alabama, nope, you are an SEC homer through and through. Like, people, if you say eye test, and hey, I just value the eye test, people are going to have perceived bias. You know what's not biased? Numbers, metrics, rankings. Like, the 11th ranked strength of schedule is the 11th ranked strength of schedule. The 7th ranked game control is the 7th ranked game control. The 11th rated offensive efficiency number is not a biased number. It's just what it is. Personally, I would rather just use the eye test as well. But people can't quantify that because not a lot of people have the skilled eye that it requires to see teams through that lens. So that's why other metrics are involved, and why I think it's helpful because it allows people to more easily digest the outcomes that they come to. But it is a little frustrating, I would admit, because I wish it would go on eye test all the time. But I can promise you this, the rankings would look a lot different for me if it were eye test.
There's no eye test needed to know who you need to call for real estate in Birmingham. Gusty Goulas and the Gusty Goulas Group. 205-542-1996, brokered by eXp Realty. Go to GustyGoulsGroup.com today. Find out how much your home is worth with very little information by smashing the button at the top of the page. Over 835-star Google reviews. Gusty Goulas Group serve more than 3,000 home buyers and sellers in the greater Birmingham area. And the Gusty Goulas Group has been recognized both nationally and locally as Greater Birmingham, Alabama's #1 team in homes sold since 2012. A lot of reasons to call the Gusty Goulas Group today. 205-542-1996 or go to GustyGoulsGroup.com and start packing today. One of those head coaches that we've been referencing with this debate, Rhett Lashlee, SMU head coach, joins us next on McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. 7:22 a.m. Wednesday, December 4th, right here on Jocks 94.5. Keep the feedback rolling in at Mac and Cube via Twitter. We'll get to that after we visit with SMU head coach Rhett Lashlee, who joins us now on the Buyers Right Hotline. Coach, always glad to visit with you. I know you got a lot going on, getting set for the ACC championship game this weekend. Did last night have any impact on your football team? What you guys heard, what you guys saw?
I haven't asked them. We're in meetings and we're getting ready to go to practice, and we're worrying about the things we can control. So, I'm sure our guys are aware. It's 2024. They all got phones. They know we're ranked 8th. We're excited to be in the field today if it were to start, and we got an opportunity to compete for a conference championship Saturday. And kind of like we've done the last 6 weeks, that's about all we can control.
I might try to recruit some guys that don't have phones. I don't know. I need the guys that are locked in for sure. But I'm not sure you can find those guys, Coach. Looking forward to be on the call this week, man. I've admired watching your program from a distance this year. It's been a lot of fun. I think there's a lot of people that just assume, knowing your history and your background, that it's just an offensive-driven unit. But I've been fascinated with what you guys are doing defensively. And how you guys have really altered the perception of what SMU football has been. So when you sat down and you hired Scott Simmons and you've kind of gone down this direction, help people understand that maybe don't know just how much that defense has taken their game to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, the defense has been the game changer for us the last 2 years when it comes to competing for and winning championships, because we've been really good offensively here for a minute, but we hadn't played championship caliber defense until last year. So what Scott Simons and that defensive staff have done here is pretty special, and just changed the culture, changed, to your point, the image of SMU. I think we kind of were always viewed as this little finesse school that scored a lot of points. And now we're not. We're a physical team. We stop the run. We play defense. We love to get after the passer. And that also helps our offense. We play good team ball. And so, I think having the number one scoring defense in our league, a top 5 rush defense in America, those are the kind of things that we just had never done here. So him and our players, they just deserve a ton of credit for just kind of changing the culture and changing the narrative here. And I think that's why last year we won a championship, and this year we're getting to play for one.
How were you able to up the ante on that physicality this year? Obviously, you could say go recruit bigger, stronger, faster kids, but also that's mindset, and that's dedication. You have to be committed to that part of your football team. Was there a plan put in place as to just how you were going to be able to sustain that part of this team throughout the course of this first year in the ACC?
Yeah, and the mindset piece really started last year. We changed all that last year in terms of how we practice, how we prepared. We've done everything this year the exact same as we did last year. Just with how we practice, how we talk about physicality, we do it. We're doing half line every Tuesday in season, and we've got the pads on, and we're practicing physical in fall camp, because you have to get those calluses, and you have to develop that as just who you are. And so we carried that over, the mindset wise, into this year, and then we added some depth in the O-line, D-line, and then the returning leadership of our team has been really good this year. I mean, it's a player-led team. Last year, the coaches probably led it, and the guys bought in and did a good job. And then this year, our guys have just taken it and ran with it. The Kobe Wilsons, the Elijah Roberts, the Jonathan McGills on the defensive side, and then a bunch of our guys on the offensive side. And so what they did is all those transfer pieces came in, and they conformed to the way we do things here. And they just bought into it just like the guys did last year. And so that's it. I mean, usually the most physical team wins at this level, and so that's been our goal every time that we go out this year.
It's been really interesting, and one thing I missed in the preseason, just evaluating your team and liking your squad, but I missed just how veteran you are. I believe 30 seniors. Is that accurate? 30 seniors on your roster. 22 transfers, several of which were with you dating back to your time at Miami. So how were you able to, one, keep guys around, which is amazing, and two, attract guys that fit culturally for what you guys were trying to create?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard every year. I mean, we're about to go through it again this year, right? I mean, obviously the winning helps keep guys, and then having the resources from an NIL standpoint, like everybody has to have nowadays to compete. I think after last year's season, we won. It was kind of a perfect storm to help us. We won 11 games. We won a conference championship. We were moving into the ACC. We were moving into a brand new football facility. So there was a lot of things happening at once that guys would want to be a part of. And so that helped us retain a lot of the core guys from last year's team, I think. And then I think lastly, we have a culture here, guys. Our staff's done a great job. Starts with our staff, continues with our players. Our guys love being here. They love competing. We're not perfect. Nowhere is. But we got a special thing going, and it's really because of those 30 seniors. So they just bought into sticking around, and then that helps you attract other people. You know, if someone came here last year and had a good experience from a school like a Miami or wherever, then the word of mouth when other guys go in the portals, no, you need to come to SMU and check it out. And they had good experiences. And so that just helped us continue to bring more guys in. But we're honest with people. We tell them the truth. We don't always tell them what they want to hear, and then we do what we say we're going to do.
One thing that we've seen, Coach, is injuries this year, be it a guy out for a game, a guy out for 2 weeks, a quarter, has had a much larger impact on other teams than we have seen in the past. How have you been able to sustain that part of what's so different in college football right now?
Yeah, I think the depth we recruited helped. We knew that's what we needed to do. And I think the other part is, you got to be fortunate sometimes. We've been pretty healthy on the defensive side. Elijah Roberts missed a game with a broken bone in his hand, has had to play the last two with a cast. But, we didn't lose him for extended periods of time. We've had other guys be banged up for a game here or there, but the depth on the D-line helped us get over it. Offensively, we lost a lot of skill guys early. We lost two of our running backs for the season in the first 2 weeks of the year. We lost our probably all conference tight end in R.J. Maryland after 5 games. We lost a slot receiver who was our leading receiver after 6 games. We lost a couple other guys there, but we've stayed healthy up front for the most part. The top 6 guys have been healthy enough to where maybe one guy misses one game and you can plug and play. But we've just been able to be fortunate to stay away from the critical injuries. And then when guys are out, next man steps up. I mean, what Roderick Daniels and Matthew Hibner have done for us at tight end and receiver with R.J. Maryland and Jake Bailey out has been huge. And with Romello Brinson being out for 8 weeks, our other outside receivers stepped up. So the next man mentality just worked for us.
When you kind of decided to go in the direction with Kevin, and look, it's obvious. By the way, also didn't realize that De'Aaron King is your quarterback coach. How does that guy get elevated up the flagpole so quick? Doesn't he have to do GA stuff and make copies and stuff like that before you get a coaching job? Goodness gracious alive.
Well, I mean, he's a winner, and he was last year. He was on our staff last year as an analyst, so he got 1 year of kind of earning his stripes. So
God, these kids these days, man, they just get fast-tracked to just the penthouse nowadays. It's unbelievable. Of course, granted, from where he was in the NIL era, he took a significant pay cut. Even as like an OC, he might be taking a pay cut. So it's all right. I'm good with De'Aaron. I'm happy for him. But you go with Kevin, and I think what a lot of people probably don't realize is while he makes a lot of off-schedule plays, he can win from the pocket too. And I'm familiar with South Oak Cliff, the high school there in South Dallas. I know the type of talent that he was playing against on a week-to-week basis, and he's seen some dudes on the other side. So it's pretty clear that the stage isn't too big for him. So the transition to him and kind of molding the offense around him, what has that opened up for you?
Yeah, and with the deal with Eric, he was like the original NIL guy. Like at 12:01 a.m. back in July of whatever year, 2020 it was, 2021. I mean, he signed like the first legit NIL deal. So back then it wasn't quite what it is now. So you're right. He was about 3 years too early from really making it big, but now he gets to coach someone who can, right? And but no, Kevin is that. Kevin's a quarterback first. He's not an athlete playing quarterback. He's not a runner. He's a pure quarterback. He can get the ball out quick. Got a bunch of different arm slots and arm angles. When he flushes and scrambles, he keeps his eyes downfield and does a really nice job. But he can also pull it down and hurt you with his feet, whether it's design run, zone read, or just scrambling. And so I think that's what he's really done for us. He's opened up the entire field. When we made that move, we thought it was the best for us in the short term. We also saw his potential and knew what he could be, and we felt like he was just going to get better and better. But what it did is it gave us a chance to have an offensive identity, build it around him, and ultimately make defenses defend the whole field, vertically, horizontally, the run and the pass. We just weren't doing that, and with him we are. And so we're able to at least stress the defense and make them have to defend us.
Rhett Lashlee, SMU head coach, joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline. Ward Manuel last night says, I asked how your team thought about it, and you basically said that you guys hadn't had a chance to talk about it, and they probably had seen it. But he says that he'll kind of reevaluate to see if something would happen to you guys and you fall below Alabama, which would mean you'd be out of the playoff. Does that have any impact on you? Do you feel the need to go out and politic for your team or to have data points ready to present if that were to be something that might take place?
I don't know if I need to politic because I don't know if they really care what I say. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, they're going to do what they think is best. We have an opportunity to win and be in. I think we should be in no matter what. I mean, I don't know the precedents you set when a team goes 11-1, 8-0 in one of the top 3 leagues in America. Only 2 teams did that this year, SMU and Oregon. We played 10 Power 4 conference games. We were 9-1 in them, 9-0 with our current starting quarterback. I heard him talk about 6-1 against teams above 500. We're 6-1. Like a lot of the stuff, it's arguable from either side, and we just need consistent data points. Like to say someone's 3-1 against ranked teams and someone's 0-1 isn't really fair when you're the one ranking the teams. Like we beat 2 ranked teams this year. When they were ranked, we beat them. We can't help it that after we beat them, we kept them from being ranked, and that a team that got beat by 40 points twice is still ranked, because it's convenient. So all that stuff to me isn't a real data point because were they ranked when you beat them? Because, if you beat the number 1 team in the country on the road and they're no longer the number 1 team, people still tell you all year you beat the number 1 team on the road. But it doesn't seem to translate when it comes to this. So I don't know what's going to happen. I respect the committee because I know they got a tough job because I rank the coaches poll every week. And when you start trying to rank the top 10 to 15, you've got arguments no matter what. What I hope is consistency of performance is a big deal. And, we won 9 straight games. We went 8-0 in our conference by an average of 19 points a game. We're a complete team. We have a good offense and a good defense and good specialists. And so, what I hope is that if you have one bad game and lose to someone who's going to end up being a 10-win team, that they don't keep you out when, like on one hand, you're ahead of another 11-1 team that doesn't play this week, and you're told that team can't move up. That's fair, but you can move behind them because you earned a chance to play. You know what I mean? Like, so should we not play this week? Should SMU not play this week?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to play this week because we're competitors, and we want a chance to compete for a championship. And we're going to trust that by us playing this week, no matter what happens, we're not going to be penalized for that. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to argue for ourselves against other teams because other teams deserve to be in. It's not about that. It's we deserve to be in. It's unquestioned, whether you like our brand or not, whether you think we beat a ranked team versus based on your rankings or not. That's your call. But our body of work says we should be in. And so, what kind of precedents are we setting if teams go out and they do what they're supposed to do, earn a chance for an extra game, and that extra game keeps them out?
It's great stuff, Rhett. Great thoughts. Really appreciate the time. I know you got to get to practice. Thanks for hanging out with us. Greg's going to be on the call, but I'm looking forward to watching you guys this weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it, Greg. See you this weekend.
Buddy.
All right, there you go. Rhett Lashlee, head football coach at SMU. Man, what a great point that he brings up of if you're sitting there above a team right now, we've talked about sitting your quarterback. We've talked about not playing your star running back, letting the left tackle sit out the game. What if you just said, we're ahead of them right now, why do we go? Send the other team. Give them a shot at it. I don't like it. I don't think he likes saying it, but it's an interesting thought to at least have a conversation about. All right, we got a lot of feedback coming in. We want to get your thoughts on the college football playoff rankings, where this might go, where this is. 800-239-9569. You can get in. Tweet in at Mac and Cube. You can text into the show 205-834-9450. There's a lot to discuss. There's a lot to get into. A lot of you are angry. Some of you are not. Flu season is ramping up, though. Make your home healthier with Trane's Clean Effects Home Air Cleaner. Removes up to 99.9% of airborne particles, including those that cause virus. 100 times more effective than standard air filters. 8 times more effective than HEPA room filters. Find a dealer near you at Trane.com. Remember, it's hard to stop a train. All right, we'll get to a break. Come back. Get all your thoughts on the college football playoff rankings next on Mac and Cube in the morning. College football playoff rankings. Oregon 1, Texas 2, Penn State 3, Notre Dame 4, Georgia 5, Ohio State 6, Tennessee 7, SMU 8, Indiana 9, Boise 10, Alabama 11, Miami 12, Ole Miss 13, South Carolina 14, Arizona State 15, Iowa State 16, Clemson 17, and then it goes BYU, Missouri, UNLV, Illinois, Syracuse, Colorado, Army, Memphis. 7:41 a.m. Wednesday, December 4th, right here on Jocks 94.5, 800-239-9569 if you want to get in. Give us your thoughts on the College Football Playoff Committee rankings, where they are, where they should be, and maybe what part of it is wrong. If we are debating Alabama, Miami, and SMU, strength of schedule, 17, 55, and 75. Strength of record, 10th, 14th, 9th. The Sagarin rankings would be Alabama 5, Miami 14, SMU 10. The Associated Press will be Alabama 11, Miami 14, SMU 8. And ESPN's FPI would be SMU at 12, Miami at 11, Alabama at 4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So for those of you wanting data points,
FPI. Why would you leave that one last?
Because folks think that I'm advocating for South Carolina to get into the playoff.
Are you?
Does it sound like I am? So Lisa Rawls tweets into the show. Hold on a second. Hold on.
Huge South Carolina homer. You've always just been banging the drum. You know, dating back to media days when you said they might have the best D-line in the SEC. It started then. And no, you were not right. Wait, hang on. You might have been right. You know what? You might have been right, or at least they were in the top 2.
How could you got Tennessee in there?
I believe you had Tennessee, South Carolina, and A&M's top 3, no?
Yes.
Oops.
Folks did not like that.
I would probably have had Texas in there now, looking back at it, but I think that top 3 or 4 is pretty solid.
That's how you do a top 3.
Well, it was hard to have Texas in at that time because of what they were losing. And
I'm not mad at you for it, but looking back at it, postseason versus preseason,
oh yeah, for sure.
I'd say it's pretty sporty.
No, Texas is in the argument to be there as well. There's no doubt about that.
You've been a dang homer from the beginning. I know your dad's a South Carolina fan.
Graduate, by the way, not just fan.
That don't matter.
Lisa Rawls tweets in, Cole is advocating that the integrity of individual games during the season, when teams finish with the same record, is irrelevant. The precedent of that would gut the importance of regular season head-to-head games. So my problem with this is that you asterisk my argument or my discussion point. My discussion point is just about, yes, a certain game took place, but then you have to put when teams finish with the same record. I can talk about a team head-to-head. I can admit that a team lost. I can also tell you that a team looks very different later in the season. Goes on to say, yep, it's shocking listening to Cole talk about the committee using the eye test. Okay, then that means everybody should play the easiest schedule they possibly can to look really, really good. Holy heck. Now, call me absolutely insane here. I feel like when I watch a team play Mercer versus when I watch a team play Alabama, I can tell the difference. I mean, that may be completely moronic to say. But when I watch you play Tennessee Chattanooga and then play Tennessee, and you look really good against both, I mean, I know this is nutty. I feel like I know the difference. I'm sorry that I'm that arrogant in my thoughts. But I feel like when you play Samford versus when you play Tennessee and you look good against both, I kind of know the difference. Now, that is me admitting that I am maybe one of the most arrogant football people on earth. But I feel like I know the difference between that.
Confirm.
You know, it's actually good to get it off your chest. I know you've been holding this in for quite some time. It's bothered you. So I'm glad everyone can see this now about your arrogance.
I wish South Lake Carroll could have played Homewood. We would have looked really good. Golly, we would have looked good. Jeez, we would have looked good. But unfortunately, we don't do eye tests in high school football.
Number one, I have not advocated for anything today. Did I not literally say off the top that I don't care? That this is literally running in circles?
Banging your head against the wall.
We are sprinting into walls and then backing up and doing it again. That's what we're doing.
I heard you wanted to come on the show today with and then you
Ric
wanted
Flair
to
come
do
to the ring?
Sandstorm. No, you want to do Sandstorm. You want to do that.
Just like him.
Yeah, just like it. Who cares? You're so mad,
But
Cole.
why
Don't
is
be
it?
mad.
Tell me this. Why is it that head-to-head matters when teams have the same record, but head-to-head doesn't matter otherwise?
Because you have to weigh more than just one thing. That I'm okay with. Head-to-head, when all things are equal, should be the ultimate determinator. I like that word.
It's a new one.
I think that
It
should
is
be
a
the
good word.
ultimate.
Trademark it.
This is a good one.
I'm about to say determinator might be in the new Webster's dictionary. I think you should, when all else is close or comparable, strength of schedule, strength of record, win-loss record, all that stuff, when all is close and comparable, head-to-head should be the ultimate tiebreaker. That's what I've said from the beginning.
Is that like a Wayans Brothers version of Terminator? The Terminator?
Yes.
Determine.
Yeah.
I think Determinator is that might be a new Marvel superhero. You're welcome, Disney.
There you go. You'll get the credit for it. James wants to talk rankings. He's in on the Buyers Right Hotline. Welcome in, James.
Morning, guys. Great
Morning.
show.
Thank you. Well, according to some,
Hey, I just
others
wanted
say no.
Yeah.
Got
I
him.
just wanted to comment on what SMU's coach said, because I hadn't thought about that. When he said that, the teams that they beat were ranked when they beat them, they're not ranked anymore because they beat them. That's something that just really hadn't crossed my mind. You know what I mean?
We go through that every year, James, where team had this win versus they were ranked 4 or 10 or 11, and now they're not ranked, or they're ranked in the 20s. And I think mentally and emotionally, it's a lot more difficult to beat a team that's ranked in the top 5 when you play them, no matter where they are after you play them. So I do think teams should get credit for where a team is ranked. I'm not saying ultimately it should trump everything else, but it's definitely something that we should pay attention to.
Yeah, I just think the valid point that he made that hadn't crossed my mind was the reason they're not ranked anymore is because we beat them. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, I appreciate you letting me call, guys. Have
No,
a great
thanks for
day.
being a part of the show. Always appreciate you guys who want to chime in and let us know how you're feeling. We want to let you know how we feel about Backyard Adventures, because they got the playground built in my backyard. Kids were playing on it yesterday. It was pretty chilly last night around 5 o'clock, and 7-year-old, 4-year-old wanted to play basketball and just keep going. And I was like, fingertips are numb, guys. It's time to go in. They're like, no.
Numb son.
No, 4-year-old didn't even have shoes or a long sleeve shirt on. He just wanted to keep going. I was like, we got to get inside. But nonetheless, we were on that basketball goal for hours yesterday, and we've had a blast with it. Greg's had a blast with his, all thanks to Backyard Adventures. Go check out their facility at Cahaba Valley Road. They've got them all put together. You can see what they look like right then, right there, and then decide which one you want. They'll customize it for you. And Greg, they'll come install the basketball goal for you right there at your house.
They will, and it's been a great investment that we've made in our family. I know you guys will feel very similarly. It's honestly amazing. It's so much fun. We have used it religiously. It's been a terrific investment, and we know that you guys, if you make a similar investment, you'll get the same benefit out of it that we've gotten as well. So go and check them out off Cahaba Valley Road. You'll be glad you did. You can also go online at backyardalabama.com.
All right, today is also National Signing Day. We also have a lot of names in the portal, and we also need to get to our top 3. We'll do that next on Mac and Cube in the morning. McElroy and Kublik in the morning, 7:53, Wednesday, December 4th. Let's hurry up and get into our top three. We don't have a lot of time to do it. Damien?
We also have a text message, so you can text in the Jocks text line 205-834-9450. Sam wants to let you know, Cole, that you're showing your true Auburn colors because you're jealous that Alabama's in the college football
That is
playoff.
definitely it.
That's
because this is the first time that I've
point.
had to manage that and deal with that.
That's the data point.
By the way, they're not in yet.
That's the data point. No, the top three teams, who do you want? Who are the top three teams you would not want to see in the college football playoff right now?
As in
like they're peaking.
playing good,
yeah.
as in not as in your hatred towards them and you don't want to see. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
You
A
don't
lot
wanna
of this
match
is
up
going to
with them.
depend on who I am and my personnel and what I have. But if we're talking about a one-off, I honestly think Texas would be one of those teams because of how that defensive line's playing right now. But I'm going to go a little bit of a different direction. Like, I think Tennessee would be one of those teams if you hadn't played them. Because if you can't match up with parts of that and they're playing well, you're just in trouble. It's very difficult to match up. And I have to say Oregon. Because I think Oregon's very balanced, and I think Oregon still can beat you in multiple ways. And no one else has been able to do it. So it'll be hard for me, for a lot of my guys, to think that we could go out there and do it.
Okay.
Greg?
Ohio State, Oregon are two that are pretty obvious. And you're getting Ohio State on sale right now.
I'll
Like
take
last
Ohio
week,
State. Sign me up.
yeah. I mean,
We'll be
come
fine.
on. Like, you're not worried about them?
No.
All right. Famous last words. I think Ohio State is still really good. I think Ryan Day is. It's going to sound crazy when I say this. He's got Les Miles level stubbornness. I really believe that. And I think him last week, in an effort to showcase how far they've come, tried to beat Michigan at their own game and failed miserably. Had a couple really bad
Very fair point.
and I think that was not a smart move on his part. But I think that's the elephant in the room for him is Michigan. Against everybody else, man, he's going to coach to win, not coach to prove a point. And I still think they had the best roster. So Ohio State 1, Oregon 2, followed closely by Texas at number 3. Those are the three teams I'd at least like to play.
Number one for me is Oregon. They've proved that they're the best team all along. You definitely don't want to face them. Number 2 is Texas. I think they're peaking at the right time, but right behind them is Georgia, especially in the second half. They may take a minute to figure out what they need to do, but once they realize, oh, I got this, yeah, it's hard for them to stop.
Yeah, I went Oregon, Tennessee, and Texas as well. But I'm interested on Ohio State, Greg. You still think Ohio State's got that? Like, I don't know. I'm not sold.
I think Greg's. I'm speaking for Greg here, but I think it's personnel based.
Personnel.
And if they get things right, they have guys that there's just not a lot you can do about.
Fair.
We'll continue that conversation and talk to Trent Dilfer, UAB head football coach, next on Jocks 94.5. Damien and I just saw our man JJ Pruitt doing a hit supporting the Hope for Autumn Foundation, in which I feel like I'm right on board with. Because about every July, I start hoping that autumn gets here as well.
We need it.
We need that.
And love ball.
And then we came up with the whole idea of the McElroy and Kubelik Hope for Football Foundation, that we can just help people get through those times of not having football in their lives.
We're about to reach that point.
No, we got plenty of time now. This is the longest season of our lives.
That is true.
We're going to be okay.
Football never ends.
We're also going to be okay because Trent Dilfer will return as UAB's head football coach next year. Coach, I don't know if that was a conversation that you were a part of beforehand when the statement came out or needed to be a part of, but we didn't feel like we needed to see it, but we were excited to see it and glad to have you back. And thanks for joining us here this morning. But what was that process like for you, I guess, yesterday or the last few days?
Well, I appreciate it. I was not involved in the process of keeping me. I'll put it that way. No, I was so gutted from the loss on Saturday. As I told you, I think a handful of weeks ago, I've been spending a lot of my time kind of doing a 360 review of what needs to be fixed. So I've been turning over every stone, trying to find solutions to turn this thing around. I immediately started on season review, player evals, coach evals, having to make some very hard decisions there, moving on from some guys I really respect and admire, but, need to find some fixes, and figured that my bosses would, determine my fate. And I'm sure they were huddling. I mean, we've only won 7 games in 2 years. That this is reality of the business. And then I was elated to find out that I get a chance to finish what we started. So I'm super excited to be back and to find solutions to the problems that we have.
Well, I don't think it, to me, obviously you're a friend, but I don't think it should have been as difficult a decision. I mean, there was progress made this year. And albeit, if you look at the schedule you played, you still played really high-quality teams. And if you look at the AAC in general, it's not an easy task. And you had several teams on the ropes this year, and now it's just about finishing. So as you assess this week, the portal and the signing day today and all this stuff, the calendar, like I said, is just phenomenal. I love how it sets up. Makes so much sense. Makes it so much easier on everybody. But looking at the portal and everything, how aggressive will you be in the early going, knowing the portal opens up just 5 days from now?
Well, so I answer that 2 ways. I don't know if this is a revelation. I wanted a simple way to explain to my players and coaches Sunday why we hadn't been successful based on all the rocks I had turned over and all the eval I have done and all the soul searching I have done. And what I told them was winning football, and this goes to Little League football, high school football, college football, pro football, UFL football, European football, you name it. And you guys did this better than anybody, right? Especially in your tenure at Alabama. Winning is about winning the inches. It's a game of inches. And we have lost so many inches in 2 years. Now, we've done some good things. There's been some progress. We've had teams on the ropes. Yes, we've had a brutal schedule. All those things are true things. But in order to win and be a consistent winner, you got to build your program around winning the inches. It has to be habitual to win the inches. And I explained that to them, and I said, now it's time to go to work on identifying what those inches are, clearly explaining those to our players, and then winning every single one. So recruiting is one of the inches. We're actually really pleased with what we're signing today. It's not a huge class. We did not want a huge class. We wanted to make sure that the high school players we're signing today have a chance to impact us in the fall. There's a handful of them. They're above our ability to recruit on paper. So we feel really good about that. we're losing some guys to the portal, so we'll address the portal aggressively, but not early, to answer your question. Early portal equals money. The one thing I've told my team, my coaches, is if it's about the money, we don't want them. Do we want to allow some of our players to make money? Absolutely. I've been very bullish about that. I absolutely love NIL. I love these players' opportunity to make money. But if it's about the money, I don't want them. Because it's going to be hard again. There's going to be adversity again, right? Football is full of hard things. It's full of climbs. It's full of falls. It's full of all the stuff that is brutal. And if your motivation was money, one foot's going to jump out. And we saw that this year. We want guys with both feet in. That when times get hard, they're here because they love UAB. They love football. They love their teammates. They love competing. They love the battle. They love the journey. That's the guy we're identifying. Those guys aren't signing anywhere in the early portal. Those guys are late portal. We're looking really close to JC players. JC football's gotten better because you have qualifiers going to junior colleges because the portal kills their ability to go to FBS and FCS programs. So they end up going in developing in JC. Their qualifiers going into JC, so they play 1 or 2 years, and they're kind of plug and play. So we're looking closely at JCs. And then we'll let the money cycle play itself out. My guess, between coaches and personnel staff, will probably evaluate close to 1,000 portal JC players here in the next 2 weeks. That all day, every day, watching tape, evaluating players. And then we'll try to put together a really good class there, and then we'll hit the late high school signings, the February signing guys to fill out the rest of the roster there. And we've done really well in the back half of those signing things. And here's the other thing nobody's talking about. We've developed young players that haven't played a lot yet. I'm willing to play them. I'm willing to play homegrown, 2-year developed guys that have come in here that love UAB, that love football, that show us every day in practice they love to compete. They're willing to win the inches. Just because they have 0 career starts doesn't mean they can't start day 1 next year.
Trent Dilfer, UAB head football coach, joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline. There are a lot of UAB fans out there, I think, that saw Jacob Zeno's name in the portal or said that he has intentions to go to the portal, and they kind of panicked or they got nervous and didn't like it. But I'm assuming that this is something you are aware of, probably had knowledge of. He and a couple of others announcing that they're going to look into the portal. No big surprises for you, though, I would assume.
No, that's not a surprise. Jacob got banged up early. He's filing for a medical red shirt, which gives him another opportunity to increase his value. I think it's a really good decision by Jacob. I support him. I'll help him any way I can. Jalen Kitna proved to be a dynamic player, got better every week, really fixed some of his turnover issues he had early in the season, early in his tenure as a starter. Our offense was so much more explosive as we built it around Jalen. And people forget, he hadn't started a game in 4 years. Hadn't played football in 3 years. So every week was a learning experience for him. He's a dynamic leader. His teammates love him. Competed at a really high level despite, the one thing about Jalen Kitna is regardless of circumstance, does not matter what the circumstance is, his output's going to be exactly the same. He is unflappable. His ability to emotionally regulate and stay poised, whether it's going good or bad, is exceptional. He's still got a million things he needs to work on, but we have a lot of confidence that we have the ability to identify those things and make rapid improvements. And I think you're going to see one of the better quarterbacks in college football next year in Jalen Kitna.
Trent, as you look at the rankings last night, and I know this is probably a difficult thing to stomach, but if you were on that committee, Alabama sits in front of Miami, who sits in front of Ole Miss, who sits in front of South Carolina. And there's a lot of discussion about those 4 teams. My view is that all 4 are flawed. And because we expanded to 12, that now opens the door for flawed teams do have second chances and third chances, and in some cases, fourth chances. So looking at the structure and how things are formatted, what would you prioritize if you were on the committee? Strength of schedule, eye test, conference? What would be things that would be of importance to you as a football coach?
My number one thing is how you're playing now. And this is my NFL background, and you'll understand this. Like, very rarely does the best team at midseason NFL win the Super Bowl. In fact, it hardly ever happens. If it does, they usually go through a really hard time around Thanksgiving, and then they start putting, the foot on the gas late in the season. But, championship football is how you're playing late in the year because you're absorbing attrition, right? Injury, emotional, all the dramatic elements that go into a football season. You evolve. Your players get better. Players get worse. Coaches are more checked in. Coaches check out. How much does external factors affect your ability to prepare every week? Your culture's growing. A culture is an evolving thing. It's never static. So, it's a long season. You guys were joking before I came on. It's the longest season ever, right? And it is. So who cares what you were week 7? Who cares what you were week 9? It's what are you now? And I think that's by far the number one thing I would look at is how are they playing right now? Who are they as a team? And if these guys are truly watching as much film as they say, which I am skeptical about because I know how much film I watch and I still can't get through enough of it. But if they're watching as much film as they say they're watching, then they know how to look at effort. They know how to look at, striking opponents, shedding blocks, running to the football, tackleability, if a guy's banged up, if they're playing fast, decision-making by quarterbacks, coach play calling, red zone defense, energy on the sideline. I can go through 50 more things that you'd look at and be like, oh, that team's got it. I don't want to play that team. They got it right now. And then you can see teams that are like, they're kind of in it for themselves, a little flashy, a lot of sizzle, not a lot of substance there. Yeah, they're super talented. I get that. But do they play with that soul, with that grit, with that toughness, down in and down out? Do they love each other? Do they play for something bigger than themselves? And not sure. And I'm not using any names here because I actually haven't seen a lot of the teams you just mentioned. But that's by far, that's the number one thing I would look at.
It's amazing, Coach, to think about what you said just about film. Greg and I have this conversation every fall, and week 0 comes around, and you have this little small sprinkle of games, and it's really cool because you can take an hour and a half, 2.5 hours of the next day, you can get through them, and then you feel like you're ahead and you feel like you're good. You're watching back some stuff from last year, and you get through week 1, and you're like, okay, I feel pretty good. It's kind of scramble. And then at the end of week 2, you're behind, and you never catch up. Literally you never catch up after week 2. It's over. You're never going to see everything you need to see.
Guys, I got 50 hours of tape I have to watch today. How many hours in a day are there? I mean, I will be traveling. I will watch more film on vacation than I will be with my grandson. You know what I mean? It's just, you can't, there's not enough hours in the day to watch what we need to watch, to have a discerning eye for what you're seeing. Anybody can blow through film. Anybody can, right? Parcells taught me this. Tedford taught me this. Norv Turner, these are legends. And they said anybody can watch film. Very few know what they're looking for. Learn what to look for. And then spend more time watching it. It's watching tape, studying tape, knowing what to look for, knowing what's important, and then knowing what's peripheral is the art of football. And for them to sit there and go, we watch all this film, I just sit there going, sure you are. Yeah, you're just blowing through film and looking at recruiting rankings and chasing narratives. You got to dive into the film. You got to be seeing film as you're going to bed and as you're waking up, meaning it's a reel in your head that never stops. I remember teaching Hasselback this. He'd try to leave the office at 7, and I'd walk out to the parking lot and be like, we're just getting started, bro. Well, I got kids at home. They're young. And I'm like, yep, that's why you're making a few $1 million a year. Get your butt in here. And we'd be there till it'd be Seattle. It'd be 28 degrees. The wind's blowing. The rain's blowing sideways. The building's dark, and it's 10:15 at night, and we're just getting into the normal down and distance blitzes and padding them. And it's that's what it takes.
Coach, really quick, I wanted to ask you about National Signing Day. And this is not a knock against the kids. This is not a knock against the people that cover it. I don't know why. Maybe we're just completely invested in this new playoff and the portal and everything else happening, but it just feels like it has less juice this year. Not saying it's not important. Everybody needs players. It's the lifeblood of every program, but has luster been taking off of this day because of just everything else, I guess?
Massively. And it's a shame because these are the kids that are probably going to change the face of your program. And these are the kids you've invested in season OVs, which are brutal, official visits, tons of unofficial visits, camp visits, on the road recruiting in January, countless numbers of phone calls. And this is the big places have just it's relentless, the recruiting that goes into sign kids these days. And then I don't know how much you've explained to the audience the difference between an NLI, a national letter of intent, which no longer exists, and a GIA, grant in aid, which is actually being signed today, which opens up a whole nother can of worms. So what they're signing today is a grant and aid agreement, and it binds the institution to the player. And then it puts a recruiting ban on the player. Sounds great, right? Okay, basically an NLI. It's not. Any street agent can now negotiate with a player that signed a GIA to then go elsewhere. I mean, you have compliance directors that are like, we can't monitor this. So you might sign a kid today and he flips in February because somebody behind the scenes that you can't control is now recruiting a kid that's on a quote-unquote recruiting ban. So I think that's a whole other topic that needs to be talked about with some of the things that need to continue to be fixed in college football, because you're going to sign these kids today and then you're going to keep recruiting them until February 5th, the next signing day, when they actually can sign the NLI. So this whole thing is very interesting.
Coach, we always appreciate the time. Enjoy our visits, and hopefully we can keep doing it and keep having you back.
You guys are the best. I had a great year. Appreciate you. Thanks for the hard questions and the affirmation when things were tough. It really went a long way. So look forward to doing more of them.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Coach. Catch up soon.
Appreciate you guys. Bye.
All right, 800-239-9569. I know a lot of folks want to get in, talk college football, playoff rankings. We'll do that. We have players in the portal we need to get to, some other coaching news that we need to get to. So a lot going on around college football today. We'll get to all of that. Before we do, I'll tell you about your CBD store. If you need products to help you with arthritis, now that the weather's cooling down, if you're having trouble getting around, maybe you have a pet having trouble getting up and down the stairs. I've had 2 in my household that your CBD store has helped with. Easy treats. They take them, and mine at least, a couple days in, next thing you know, they're moving around better. Anxiety for you or your pet, they have products that can help. Weight loss, the Trim by SunMed is on the shelves now at the largest brick-and-mortar CBD retailer in the world. Skincare for your pet, for you. Gut health for your pet, for you. They have all products that can help you with that at your CBD store. First company to have USDA-certified organic oil supplements. They've got the stamp seal on those products. Go check out one of their 3 locations now. Highway 280 by Bailey Brothers, 150 by the Cage in Cleaver, Trussville just off 459, and now downtown in 5 Points, your CBD store where good health hits home. All right, we will take a break, come back. Your reaction to the college football playoff rankings, where they are, where they should be. Next, Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, let's continue talking college football. Before we do that, right here at 8:22 a.m. Wednesday, December 4th, Jocks 94.5. We'll talk a little college basketball in just a moment. But, G-Mac, go ahead and tell our listeners about Crocker Moving Services and how they can help them around their homes.
Well, they're a local company owned by an Iraq War veteran, Eric Crocker. Crocker believes in hiring movers you can trust to complete full background checks and run drug tests on every single employee. These are good guys, and you can trust them in your home. Whether you need your whole home packed up and moved, your company's headquarters moved across country, or you just want them to come rearrange your living room, these guys got you covered. They also do deliveries for furniture that you've purchased and need to get to your home. So call or visit them online today for a free quote. The website's crockermovingservices.com. That's crockermovingservices.com. Support your veterans by choosing Crocker Moving Services for your next move.
Well, lost in the mix a little bit. SEC looked really good in basketball last night, specifically against the ACC, with the SEC-ACC Men's Challenge presented by Continental Tire taking place. LSU over Florida State, 85-75. South Carolina over Boston College, 73-51. Missouri took down Cal, 98-93. Georgia took down Notre Dame, 69-48. Arkansas over Miami, 76-73. Ole Miss over Louisville, 86-63. Texas A&M took down Wake in the milk the shot clock game of the year, 57-44.
Ooh.
Maybe nobody was making shots. I didn't see any of that game. Anybody else punished themselves watching that game? Wake shot 28% from the floor, 17 of 60. Texas A&M shot 19 of 49. So they shot 28 and 38%. Yikes. But SEC gets the win. Tennessee smashes Syracuse 96-70. Oklahoma over Georgia Tech 76-61. Folks, these are blowouts.
Yeah.
Blowouts.
It just
And
means more.
Clemson did get number 4 Kentucky 70-66. That one went late last night. I tried to stay up for that one and finally shut it down. Tonight, 6:15, Alabama at North Carolina from the Dean Dome. That's on ESPN. ESPN 2, you'll get Virginia at Florida. 8:15 on ESPN, Auburn at Duke. I made the massive mistake yesterday of selling to my 7-year-old how cool it is for Auburn to be playing at Duke. And like, this is a big deal. And then I realized the tip's at 8:15.
So, yeah.
And?
He's not going to see any of it. And he's going to ask me to stay up and watch it. And I'm going to say, no. Sorry.
I don't feel like
Mom's not going to let
that's,
that happen.
to be honest with you, I don't feel like it's asking too much for him to stay up.
It's not. But when your 7-year-old wakes up between 5 and 5:30 every morning, he's got to go to bed.
He's got to go to bed.
It
No,
happens.
you got to want it.
He already has the
wants
old
it.
man body clock where he wakes up at the same time every morning. And if he doesn't get enough sleep, it's trouble. You get Pittsburgh at Mississippi State tonight on the SEC Network, Texas at NC State on ESPN 2, and then Vandy at Virginia Tech. So a lot of good hoop last night, a lot of good hoop tonight involving SEC teams. Greg, we didn't really get your response to what Rhett Lashlee said on the show about should we just not go play? Brandon tweets into the show at Mac and Cube. SMU coach is right. The team shouldn't play this weekend. Under the current 12-team format, this upcoming weekend shouldn't exist. You have your top 12 teams. Send them like that, and the top 4 get a bye. But what you don't have is conference champions.
Yep.
And I know a lot of folks, that's a goal of theirs. They want to try to obtain that, achieve that. Now, he wasn't alluding to any sort of reality of not playing this weekend, Greg, but I think it's just interesting that he brings up the point of saying it without saying it of should we really be punished for going and playing in a conference championship game this weekend? Something that we said about the SEC probably won't happen to either Georgia or Texas, whoever loses that game.
Right. And I understand the frustration, but not all conferences are created equal. I mean, SMU, with all due respect, and I got a ton of respect for Rhett, got a ton of respect for SMU's program. And to be honest with you, I think the roster's painfully underrated in the eyes of many. They've played the second easiest Power 5 schedule. I mean, that's the realities of the situation. They don't have a win against a team that's currently in the top 25. I understand what he said is that when they beat them at the time, they were in the top 25, but Pitt's lost 5 in a row. Like, we can't count that as a ranked win. Like, that doesn't count anymore. So I've got tons of respect for Rhett and everything that he's built. But I do think there will be a real possibility that they'd be left out in favor of Alabama if they lose this weekend. Should they be? Probably not. Because I think that, like we've said from the beginning, to hold a team accountable for that 13th data point when the other teams don't have to play it feels a little unfair. It really does. But I don't think it would be wise if all you play for is national championships, then everyone's failed except for one team every year. And I don't think college football should be built that way. I think that there should be several tiers for several teams. And for some teams, winning a national championship is the end all be all. And anything less than that is a failure. But that's not the case for SMU, who is having their best season in 40 years. They haven't been ranked this high since 1985. So if I were them, I'd relish the opportunity to play on ABC in prime time. I'd relish the opportunity to win a championship against a team that's won 2 national championships in the last 8 years. And I would try to put my best foot forward and leave no doubt.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. All right, we have a lot more news to get to around college football, but we'll go back to the phones. Pelham Panther wants to talk college football playoff rankings. Welcome into the show.
Hey, guys. How y'all doing?
Great, thank you.
Other than Alabama having 4 top 25 wins, what was the criteria you think that the committee went by last night? Is it because they travel well and bring money? What do you think?
I would say probably 17th ranked strength of schedule. If you go by computer data.
Hang on a second. Other than what was the first line of your question? Other than what?
Other than 4 top 25 wins.
What more do you need?
5?
That's my question. I understand the thought process. Other than this, other than having, a superstar running back, what does Boise have? Other than a 10-2 record and a spot in the conference title game, and 2 national championships in the last 4 years, what does Georgia have? I guess I don't understand. I agree, and you're being measured against other teams that also have 3 losses. There is no team that doesn't have blemishes. They all have blemishes. So other than the 3 top 25 wins, I'll correct you because they only have 3, not 4.
Sorry.
What more do they need?
You make a good case there. Nothing.
How many wins does Miami have against the current top 25?
Say that again?
How many wins does Miami have against the current top 25?
I don't know.
Greg?
0.
Oh. Do you know Miami's record against teams that are above 500?
No.
4-2. Do you know Alabama's?
Okay, guys, I get the picture.
6-1.
Well, it's not. We're not making a case. I just think, and I understand.
You
the
guys
3 loss
wanted
thing
data.
is hard.
I'm giving you data.
The 3 loss thing is hard for all of us to wrap our head around because I am wired as a college football fan for 35 years of my life. If you lose more than 1, you have no chance. Let alone losing 3, and let alone losing 1 by a very convincing margin of 21 points on the road against a 6-6 football team. My brain doesn't compute that resume that Alabama has towards a national championship opportunity. It doesn't. I'm going to be honest with you. It's very foreign to me, and it's taking some adjusting. But we're measuring Alabama against teams that also have massive flaws. Miami, no wins against top 25 teams. Lost 2 of their last 3. Ole Miss lost to a 4-8 Kentucky team at home and really stubbed their toe on multiple occasions against quality competition, but not super quality competition. And then against South Carolina, a team that lost to 2 of the 3 aforementioned teams. That's uncomfortable for me, but that's where we're at. And that's what we have to go on. And I understand why the committee did what they did. I'm not saying it needs to be popular. I'm not saying you have to like it. I'm not saying that any of us need to like it. Frankly, I don't really like the format, if you want me to be completely honest, but it's what we have and it's how we do things. And I think the committee made a pretty justifiable decision last night.
Thanks for the call. Do Pelham Panther and Pelham Gator fight? Or are they just in different exhibits at the Pelham Zoo?
In the Tyler Watts Museum?
The Tyler Watts Museum.
I don't know if they're allowed in there.
It's different tie.
We don't have time for Hastings.
It's 18
No,
minutes.
tell him
That's
to wait.
18
Tell him to
minutes.
wait. We'll get to Hastings on the other side. Other feedback, text in 205-834-9450. You can hit us up on the Buyers Right hotline, 800-239-9569. Back with more Mac and Cube next.
Welcome back to McElroy Cubic in the morning. Jocks 94.5, 9:36 a.m. here Eastern time, where I'm at in Hartford, Connecticut. It's Wednesday, December 4th, and we look forward to Conference Championship Saturday. Coming up here in a couple days, we also have a trio of intriguing games on Friday night too, getting kicked off at 6 o'clock. We got local Jack State chasing a title for Rich Rod. Their quarterback up in the air with an ankle injury. If Tyler Huff can't go, does that benefit Western Kentucky? A lot to kind of figure out and preview as we lead into Conference Championship weekend. One thing I don't need to necessarily explain to you is just how good the deals are at Bill Smith. You can see for yourself. Take the short drive up to Coleman, you'll see what I'm talking about. The deals are off the charts good. You won't find deals better than these. There's a reason why they're GMC's Dealer of the Year. There's also a reason why 75% of their business is repeat customers. It's because you have a better experience when you shop with Bill Smith. So take the short drive up to Coleman. You'll see those GMC trucks that are marked down 5 figures. You'll see SUVs that are marked down as well. You'll also see the Hummer, which is marked down more than $20,000 off the sticker plus 0% for 60 months. It's deals like that that have me as a repeat customer. I know it will be for you as well. Take short drive to Coleman. You'll be glad you did. You can also shop online, have it delivered right to your driveway at BillSmithBuickGMC.com.
All right, let's go back to the Buyers Right hotline. We'll start with Hastings, and we know he's going to go for a minute, so we'll let him get his thoughts in. Hastings, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, hey guys. Well, first off, I mean the playoff is cyclical. I mean, I think last year you could have made an argument for 1 through 12 really to have an opportunity to compete from a national championship standpoint. I think this year is a little bit skewed, and I'll be interested to see how it all phases out. But yesterday, I was kind of convinced that Miami would be slotted ahead of Alabama until I started to really think about, what the ramifications of the ACC championship game would mean after Boomer went on a very great rant that I'm sure had everybody on the edge of their seats with just riveting information. Thank you, Golden Domer, for that. But anyways, yeah, so if Miami would have been ahead of Alabama, and I know that we don't look at anything or past results or anything like that, I think it could have created a scenario where Miami is slotted in, and if Clemson beats SMU, Clemson and SMU are both in. And so at that point, I think you've got a really frustrated SEC because now you have 3 ACC teams in, and we can talk about deserving or non-deserving. And I know Domer went on this rampage yesterday, but when the committee says that these games shouldn't matter, that's based on the information that they have right then. They can't project that Miami's going to get upset by Syracuse and Clemson's going to lose to South Carolina, and now that one game that gets you slotted is against this Clemson team with 3 losses, who's looked very average at best with any team that has a pulse. I don't think the conference championships matter as much anymore unless you're fighting to get in. Let me rephrase it. I think they matter too much because giving somebody an automatic bye, absolutely ridiculous. Getting somebody an automatic in because they win their championship, absolutely ridiculous. I don't think that should be a part of the criteria, but I don't think that they wanted to get burned by having 2 teams in. And I think that we say we don't look at the past, but in this situation, I think you definitely have to look at the TCU. Look at the Florida State from last year. They were burned by it, and they were like, hey, we're not going to let that happen again. We know we'll get eyeballs with the SEC. We know they play quality competition, and we're not worried about it. So I think the committee did themselves a favor by doing this in case the fact that Clemson were to upset SMU, which I think is a real possibility. I do like how SMU's playing, but I really think there's a huge possibility that they can still cover their rear end, even though I don't know if it's right or wrong based on their strength of schedule, in order to push Alabama out and have those 2 ACC teams in. So kind of just interested on your thoughts on that. Interesting year, guys. Excited about it. Excited about tonight and then the rest of the season moving forward. So appreciate y'all taking my call. Thanks.
Appreciate it, Hastings. Do you feel like the committee thinks that way, Greg? Do they have that mindset going in as far as where they place teams for those kind of reasons?
No, I don't. I also think the committee has shown in the past to be very willing to change significantly from the penultimate rankings to the final rankings. Now, ultimately, back in the day, in the 14 playoff era, we weren't really measuring teams that didn't play on championship weekend very often. Like, it happened, sure. Ohio State got in one time when they were not in the conference championship game. Alabama got in one time when they were not in the conference championship game. It's happened. It doesn't happen all the time, but it has happened. So it's rare. But this is now a new frontier in which several teams that are being evaluated are not involved in conference championship scenarios. And I think that the committee does acknowledge that the ACC and the Big 12 are a step below the SEC and the Big 10. They've proven that. I hear a lot of explanations of SEC bias all the time, and SEC bias this, SEC bias that. I have yet to hear anybody accuse this committee of Big 10 bias, even though it might be warranted. And I just think that this is what we can probably expect for the foreseeable future. If it's close, when in doubt, the SEC and the Big 10 will get the benefit of the doubt, regardless of what those teams do throughout the course of the regular season. It should surprise nobody, and I can't say it's not warranted, but I also can't say that if I were in Miami's shoes, I'd feel great about it either.
All right, Troy in Oklahoma wants to talk the college football playoff rankings. Troy, welcome in.
Hey, guys. Thanks a lot. Truck driver here in Oklahoma, grew up in Talladega County. So
awesome, man. Thanks for listening.
I agree with Hastings. I don't know if they went into it like that, but I'm sure they didn't want to trap themselves into including 2 or 3, possibly 3 ACC teams. I mean, if you lay out the schedules of those 3 teams, the 3 marquee teams, Miami, Clemson, and SMU in the ACC, first of all, they didn't play each other. And then second of all, you line up their schedule. There's 36 games on all their schedules, right? 36 games and not one ranked win. That's a one-bid league. And you look at Alabama's schedule, and they've got 3 ranked wins. And when I hear not deserving, I look at those schedules. SMU, even if they win, even if they lose, they're going to be 0-2 versus the top 25. They lost to BYU. They will have a loss to Clemson if they lose. And they still don't compare. Their schedule is worse than Miami's. They're ranked 64th. I think Miami's schedule is ranked in the 50s. Anyway, just my thoughts, guys. Thanks.
No, appreciate it. It's hard to push back on any of that. I don't think any of us have a real issue with a lot of what you just said there. Rick in Vestavia wants to talk college football playoff rankings. Rick?
Hey guys, how y'all doing today?
Great, thank you.
Greg, I agree with you about what you said about SMU a while ago, that they don't have any top 25 wins, because, if they lose, because Ward Manuel said last night, that's how Alabama is ahead of Miami because of 3 top 25 wins to their 0 25. So wouldn't that put SMU in that same boat with 0 top 25 wins?
Yeah, that was one of the points that I've made really the last couple days, is that if I'm SMU, I'm going into this game this weekend assuming that I have to win. I've said for weeks now, I do not want to be the ACC conference runner-up. Don't, under any circumstances. And I think when you look at the reasons why Alabama is ahead of Miami currently, it's because of who Miami beat and who they didn't beat, frankly. And SMU's best wins are exactly what Miami's best wins are as well. Their best win is against Duke and Louisville. And if Clemson beats them, then that doesn't change anything. So I think their schedule and I think their schedules are indecipherable. The one thing that SMU has that's more impressive than Miami is their game control, which is basically a metric that we use for eye test. How much have they controlled the games? How much have they dominated the competition, not played to the standard of the opponent? SMU has won games in a far more convincing way than Miami this year, so that would be the one thing that would be different than the evaluation between them and the Hurricanes.
Yeah. What about if Clemson blew out Miami, say 35-3? Would that knock Miami out for sure, you think?
You mean SMU?
SMU.
I mean, SMU, yeah.
I think if they win by 7, they're going to get knocked out. And I think that might feel unfair.
Okay.
I think that might feel they might lose by 3, and maybe I don't know. I don't know what the margin would be. I think Alabama's going to get in. Because I think when you look, and while I think that's unfair. If you want my God's honest opinion, I think for a team to be sitting at home versus a team that has to put it on the line is a little unfair. But I also think that comparing an ACC schedule to an SEC schedule is also unfair. So life isn't fair. Tell my kids that every day. Life isn't fair. And I think that it's really, really unfortunate that SMU could find themselves in that position. But I also think that if Alabama played in the ACC, they probably wouldn't have 3 losses. I don't know that for sure, but I think that's a safe assumption.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. All right, guys, well, appreciate you taking my call.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Is that a Don Burner call?
Maybe.
Did sound like Don a little bit, didn't it?
Just a smidge.
No, he made sense, so probably not.
Oh, come on now. Greg, tell our listeners about Bromberg's.
Well, Bromberg's is great, especially this time of year. And good news, today is a good day to go by one of their 2 locations, because on today and tomorrow in both Mountain Brook and Summit locations. They have their store-wide pre-Christmas sale, meaning they have 20% off throughout the store. You can shop diamonds and gemstones, designer jewelry, fine timepieces, fabulous giftware, and more. They've actually, in order to anticipate the surge that they're going to get today and tomorrow, they've increased their inventory, so they'll have that beautiful timeless piece that you know you'll enjoy for a lifetime. So make some Christmas wishes come true with that silver Bromberg's box under the tree this year. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
All right, we'll continue talking college football playoff. You can get in, be a part of the show there. I want to ask you this question before we go to break, though, and we're going to go a little bit of a different direction before we get to Larry Williams and talk more ACC championship game, get the Clemson side of things at 9. What's the dumbest thing a sports ever tried to do? We'll discuss that next on McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. All right, Wednesday, December 4th, 8:51 a.m., right here on McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. We did not talk about this yesterday for a reason. I'm going to be honest with you. When I saw it, I just didn't think it was real. Like I didn't click it. I didn't look at it. I didn't go read it because I thought it was a joke. I thought somebody was made up the headline and had hacked into somebody else's account, and it wasn't even something that we needed time. But apparently now it's making the rounds and something that we at least need to have a discussion about. But I asked a question first before we went to break. Like, what are some of the dumbest things people have tried in sports? Like, I think we see, like, some people see the old Rock and Jock on MTV, and they're like, why don't we get a 15-point shot? Why don't we have an extra basketball goal above the other basketball goal? You get more points for it. If they go through both hoops, you get extra points for that. Major League Baseball extra base, like 2 bases stuck to each other. Some people say great, safety. Some people say what? Why?
Maybe making the All-Star game, which is an exhibition, determine home
Actually
field.
count?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a bad one.
It's up there.
Definitely a bad one.
What else have we tried? The NBA in-season tournament?
The NBA in-season tournament is number 1.
It's up there.
To me. I just don't get it. You're basically telling me that your regular season didn't matter until you decided to change how dumb your courts look and put on different uniforms and have guys play who are making, in some cases, like $60 and $70 million a year, play 4 extra games for a possibility of winning $500,000.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe 2-point conversions after third overtime.
I don't like that format either, but I don't really know how else. What do you want it to do? End in a tie? Like, that's my only thing. I wish that whoever has the ball first, in order to neutralize the advantage, like sometimes having the ball first is a disadvantage in overtime, according to some. Analytics would tell you it is, but maybe not by the margin that you think. I wish that the team that had the ball first could determine where the play was run from. So if they want to go from the 1, by all means, but if they want to go from the 10, they can do that because that would actually neutralize the advantage. So I'm good with the 2-point conversion attempts, but the team that is on offense first gets to choose where the ball is placed.
Okay. Then comes Rob Manfred referencing that there has been discussions about the golden at-bat rule in Major League Baseball.
Oh, boy.
And it would by far blow away any of these things that we've talked about.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even think it would be close as far as stupidity in a sports change that we have seen. Like, we've talked about targeting a lot, the punishment that comes with it, how it's penalized, how it's judged, how it's enforced, a lot of those things. I guess we could go to a lot of things with the NCAA overtime.
Maybe, yeah.
That they have done.
Yeah.
It would probably be in there as well. But if a team could choose one at-bat in every game to send its best hitter to the plate, even if it's not his time in the lineup, feels egregious. Feels just ridiculous. How do we have the conversation to where it even gets to this point that billionaires are in a room having conversations about whether or not this should be implemented? Do we not have enough common sense at the levels of Commissioner of Baseball to say, all right, Exhibit A3, B12 up next for docket? No. Next. Are we that interested in gaining the 6-year-old population of viewers to have Juan Soto come up to bat in the 9 hole in the top of the 4th because the bases are loaded with 2 outs?
Couldn't they just walk them?
If bases were loaded, you get a run.
Well, I guess with that, but also if someone's going, all right, so Judge is coming up to the bat, 1-0. You know what? I'll beat him. I'll take my chances with whoever's next.
I think you should get 1 free beanball a game. The batter has to stay there and take it, by the way.
Does this not just prove that baseball is in big trouble?
They're desperate.
With the next generation?
Yes. I'll counter you with, we also get to insert said pitcher at any moment in time for 1 pitch. Hit or no hit. That's it. 1 pitch.
They're in the stands.
Doesn't matter. Here he comes. Swing. If you take it, that's it. You're done. 9 o'clock, hour number 3 underway. McElroy and Kubick in the morning. Heard from Lashlee a little bit earlier in the show. So we've talked a lot of ACC championship game. What about the Clemson side of this, where this team is, how they bounce back? We will get to that here in just a moment with our guy Larry Williams, who covers the Clemson Tigers. First, I got to tell you about Game Day Men's Health. If you're feeling on edge, if you lack sleep, if your overall health is not where you want it to be, then Game Day Men's Health wants to help you. If you're feeling on edge, could be the effects of low testosterone. And here's what they're going to do. Go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com right now, set up a free consultation. You get a free PSA test, free testosterone test. Get that baseline of where your health is right this second. Game Day Men's Health offering that no-charge consult with those 2 tests, PSA and testosterone, for free. And you're going to be able to walk in and get that consultation right away. And they're going to give you the different options in which they can have to treat you. And you can save 10% on any service they have by mentioning Cube when you walk in the door. It's easy. Great environment, great people, no stress, not going to try to push you in anything that you don't need, don't want. They have weight loss programs as well they want to help you with, and minimal upfront costs from all the programs that they offer right there at Game Day Men's Health. That's different than everybody else in town. So visit GameDayMen'sHealth.com today and see what they can do for you. All right, Larry Williams covers the Clemson Tigers. He joins us now on the Buyers Right hotline. Larry, where do you think this team is sort of mentally? This is just a tough spot. You lose a close game to your rival. Now you got to bounce back, play in the ACC championship game with the chance to get into the college football playoff. Based on who you've talked to, what you've seen, what you know, mentally, emotionally, where is Clemson right now?
That's the question of the week for sure. And this is not what Clemson is traditionally used to in the ACC championship. Normally they, back in the glory days of their 6 straight trips to the playoff, you're favored by 15 or 20 most of the time, and there's not a whole lot of fear. Well, they're underdogs in this one, and I think they're underdogs for a reason. SMU is pretty dang good, and so, I think it was the most abrupt shift you can imagine, from around 3:30 or 4 on Saturday afternoon till about 7:30. In fact, Dabo Swinney at his post-game press conference after South Carolina, he was already talking about next year, talking about what they have coming back, talking about, this was a good season, not a great one. And I almost felt compelled to let him know, hey, man, y'all still have a shot at the playoff, and Miami's only up 21-14. I think a big part of that was when he checked his phone or whatever coming out of the locker room, Miami was up 21-0. But anyway, my point is just what a wild shift. I do think that you could view it as, man, this team got a reprieve and rejuvenation, and that was certainly the tone of Dabo yesterday at his regular, formal press conference. I mean, he was in rare form, and it was really all about the positivity and optimism about what they can achieve, optimism and excitement over, hey, we earned this. We finished 7-1 in the ACC, and this was the product of a successful conference season after a 4-4 conference season last year. So, I mean, do I have any rich insight into the minds of all these college kids, and as far as it being predictive of what is going to happen Saturday night? No way. And I don't think anybody does. But I do think you could see sort of both sides of it when you're talking about the devastation of losing and the way they lost to South Carolina, and the rejuvenation of being able to have a chance at the playoff.
How would you assess where the team has gone this year? Like, I have a bit of a love-hate with them, because there's been moments where I've been on the call, I'm like, these guys are great. And there's been moments where I've watched them, it's like, oh, golly, what the heck was that? The best example probably being their performance against NC State, which was outrageously good. And then, their performance against Louisville, where I'm like, what the heck? What do you attribute the ebbs and flows to that this team has experienced this year?
First of all, Greg, I have stuck up for you, because Clemson fans, after the Pitt game, when I think you said this is not a top 25 team, something to that effect, they flipped out. And they said, Greg hates us, and it's just all SEC this and that. And I had to stick up for you, because I'm a regular listener, to your podcast. I love it. It's great stuff. And I had to remind them that you spent maybe a month early in the season, maybe more, saying, I am big on Clemson. This is a top 10 team. So anyway, what to make of this team? I think it's hard to make, to form really strong conclusions. And that's a rarity when you're sitting here in December. I think part of it is their schedule, their best performances have come against bad opposition. Okay. And honestly, my revelation that I had this week, actually just yesterday, as I'm trying to process what happened Saturday against South Carolina, and it's hard for Clemson fans there's so much baggage associated with a rivalry that it's hard to have clarity after that type of loss to a rival. But I think there's an argument to be made that was their best performance of the season. I think South Carolina is really dang good. And Clemson outplayed South Carolina for most of that game. They didn't close the deal, but Clemson's offensive line played way better than I expected they would, just given their injured state and given that some of their inconsistencies that they had shown. I mean, you saw them at Pittsburgh, right, Greg?
I saw them at Pitt, NC State, and Georgia. I've seen them 3 times.
Yeah, I'm just saying more recently, the injured state of that offensive
Yeah, the
line.
offensive line injuries at the Pitt game, like that one I can almost eliminate. Like that was a gutsy win. You know what I mean? Like that one I gained respect for them in that game, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and they, it's hard for Clemson fans to accept that South Carolina has a truly just Superman type of player in the same mold of the one that Clemson had years ago in the form of Deshaun Watson. But that is what happened. That is who South Carolina has. That is why Clemson lost that game. I'm not saying Clemson's tackling was great, but I watched quite a lot of Sellers earlier in the season, and as Dabo pointed out as well, like everybody else has had that same problem too. Nobody can tackle that dude. And so I kind of look at this team as having kind of proved something. I know I'm probably going to get called soft and whatever and making excuses for Dabo, but I kind of saw a lot in that game, in a loss, that I hadn't seen, that I was wondering about for the entire season previously, if that makes any sense.
No, I think it totally does. And when you look at what they're going to face off against with SMU, what aspect of this Clemson team do you feel, I guess, is most important? Who needs to show up the most? Who needs to be on their best behavior in this game if Clemson's going to find a way to knock off SMU and get to the college football playoff?
They've got to run the ball. They've got to run the ball. They actually blocked South Carolina pretty well. Pass blocking was really good. And I just don't think Bill Maffa right now is very healthy. And the offensive line, to me, against South Carolina, blocked well enough for them to have some real pop at running back. And Maffa averaged, I think, 3.3 yards a carry. I think maybe they need to get creative with maybe motioning Antonio Williams back in the backfield, more design runs from Cade Klubnik. From what I see out of SMU, I'm sorry. They can be vulnerable in the downfield passing game, but you're probably not going to score a bunch of points just with that. You've got to establish some sort of running game to then set up the passing game. I guess could be vice versa, but you're not, they almost beat South Carolina just with a cluster of explosive plays, but I think they were just too one-dimensional in the running game, in my opinion. And so that's really what I'm thinking about right now as far as Clemson's best path to winning the conference championship.
I think that Cade Klubnik's legs have been a bit of a revelation. I knew he had them, but I think his decisiveness in using his legs have really opened things up, and it's taken some of the pressure off Phil Maffa. I mean, Phil Maffa, I think you can't hand it to him enough. You know what I mean? He's one of those guys that the more you hand it to him, the more he seemingly gets better. I do think he was a little banged up as the season went along. How could you not be? He's been such a bell cow. But when you look at this rushing attack and how often Cade Klubnik needs to likely be used in the run game, how many touches is ideal for him?
For Klubnik?
Yes.
Oh, that's what I was just sort of getting at. Like, he has really excelled in the improvisational aspect of it. Breaking outside the pocket and then making those types of runs. I think they do need to do more, add more design runs. I don't know what the number is, honestly. I go back to Namaka. You saw Greg at Pitt. I mean, I think he has a shoulder injury, first of all, and I think you can see evidence of that as he runs out of bounds, as he tries to block sort of with just one arm almost. And I just think that they have more capability in the running game, and of course that involves Klubnik in the read game and all that. I don't know what the number of touches really, or number of runs for Klubnik would be. I just think a healthy number of big chunk plays from Klubnik, and that, you of course saw that. Well, you didn't see a lot of that at Pitt, but you saw the decisive play of the game was that was a design run, that was a draw, a 50-yard touchdown, and he was involved against South Carolina. Klubnik played I think a great game until the very end when he made a poor decision, and so I just think more of the same, honestly, from him.
All right, we're visiting with Larry Williams. He covers the Clemson Tigers. And you mentioned that Dabo was a little extra yesterday. Any reason why particularly you think that was, I guess, his behavior, his attitude in that press conference? And what does he make of this team heading into this game right now?
I think it goes back to his demeanor after the game Saturday. Like I said, I think if you go back and pull up the video of his post-game press conference, it was as if the season was over. And I know, of course, that's the feeling when you lose to your rival like that. And so I sort of interpret his demeanor yesterday as going extra the other way and Mr. Positive and telling the media, y'all didn't expect to be here having this press conference today, talking about an ACC championship game. Well, I wanted to say, well, neither did you with your demeanor after the South Carolina game. I think he is trying to motivate his team and maybe motivate himself and his staff to the opportunity that they have. I mean, it was just, yesterday's 3 days after one of the most debilitating defeats you could imagine. And so I think it takes some psychological work and maneuvering. And as we know, Dabo he is an excellent leader in that way, in knowing which buttons to push with his team, knowing when to push them. And so my interpretation, after having been around him for a long time, is just that. I mean, he did overdo a good bit of it and saying he's talking about the national championship parade already and having Fran Brown in the car with him. I just think that's what he has a good touch, a motivational touch, and that's what I attribute it to.
Fran Brown being in the front row, in the front seat of the national championship car is actually, I might be rooting for Clemson to win the whole dang thing now. Just for that cinema, it'd be pretty tremendous. Lastly, when we evaluate the ACC as a whole, and you've been around it now for a bit, I think it's pretty solid. I don't think it's as good as the SEC. I don't think it's as good as the Big Ten. I think it's pretty solid though. Like, I think Duke, if you were to take off the Duke sticker and put NC State sticker on the helmet, I think people would look at them a little differently. I think if you were to really watch Louisville and see how they've lost some games, it would probably be a team that would probably garner more respect than they probably are getting right now. But I don't think people watch the game. They just see 8-4. They say, oh, yeah, they're not good. But when you look at just the ACC state as a whole, how do you feel about the state of the league?
I mean, we could talk for an hour. I think the biggest thing is just the profile and the lack of splash, I guess. And, this might not be fair to the SEC because what you're talking about is strength on the field. But gosh almighty, just all the empty seats that you see at so many of these stadiums compared to the conferences, the two, the SEC and the Big Ten, that Clemson and Florida State and maybe others are wanting to eventually join. And a lot of money is tied to that profile. And so I think that's why it matters. But I think you're onto something when you talk about, Louisville in particular. Before they came to Clemson, I spent the previous week watching them, and I'm like, this team has some dudes. Like Isaac Brown, the running back, is as legit as it gets and hard to handle as it gets. Pittsburgh, before they started suffering a bunch of injuries, I think they were hard to handle. And I think SMU, if people out there haven't watched SMU and are just assuming they're just some pushover, they need to take a closer look, because I'm not saying they're a top 5 team, but they're pretty solid. And so I guess maybe you could argue that the ACC is maybe a microcosm or similar to college football as a whole, as far as like the top, in that no truly, the eliteness has sort of dissipated, but that second tier, you have some solid teams. I'm not stumping for the ACC just because I've just been kind of a pessimist about the conference overall. But I do think there are a few teams that are probably better than the surface level viewers might assume.
Larry, we appreciate the time. Always good stuff. Always glad to catch up with you, and you always inform us on Clemson and everything else happening around them. We appreciate it and look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Yeah, both of y'all inform me a lot, so I appreciate y'all.
Thank you very much. All right, that's Larry Williams, covers the Clemson Tigers, giving us a little bit more of an angle on this ACC championship game coming up this weekend. You can follow Larry on Twitter at LarryWilliamsTI, TigerIllustrated.com, where you can find his work. So before we get to break, G-Mac, tell our listeners about B-Dry.
Well, B-Dry's been serving Alabama and customers in this community for a really, really long time. Very, very grateful for everything that they've done around this community. And I know, too, that they're going to be amazing as it relates to making sure that your basement and crawl space are waterproofed, making sure that your foundation is repaired, and stopping all 5 ways that water can enter your foundation. They'll do a great job for you. I know they'll do a great job in the future as well, because they back it up with the life of the structure warranty. If there's an issue down the road, they'll come out and they'll get it taken care of. And they're going to make sure that it's the best possible price for you as well. 0 interest for 12 months. No payments as well. So you have some extra cash in hand and still get the job done before the first of the year. So call them today to make sure they come out. You can also visit them online at bdryalabama.com, or you can give them a call at 942-1976. That's 942-1976, or bdryalabama.com.
All right, more quarterbacks in the portal, and some good news for Auburn on signing day, which is today. We will discuss it next right here on McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. All right, good news for Auburn here on National Signing Day, which is today. It doesn't feel like it. But this used to be a day that we all counted down to, looked forward to, couldn't wait for. Now we have multiple, and it's weird. Also, Andrew Vines tweets into the show, that was an embarrassingly soft interview. Progress was made in a worse record, multiple blowouts, 0-12 on the road. So I'm sorry that we let you down, Andrew, and I hate that you have embarrassment for me for doing my job. I could care less if you're embarrassed for me and how I conduct interviews on this show, but congratulations to you for letting me know that I embarrassed you, or you have embarrassment for me, because that won't do anything to the rest of my day, but good for you. The good news for Auburn is...
Who's he talking about? He talking about our interview just a moment ago?
With Dilfer earlier in the show, referencing that. So he is embarrassed for us. Embarrassingly soft to interview. It's a weekly interview, by the way. So it's not like it wasn't a one-time gotcha interview to bring somebody on and try to bust them up, at the seams and see if we could get them and catch them. So hate that you have embarrassment for me. Don't care that you do, and we'll be fine. So good luck with the rest of your day. Good news for Auburn and National Signing Day today. Five-star quarterback Deuce Knight has signed with Auburn. We know he flipped from Notre Dame earlier in the recruiting process, so that is done. And we'll have a couple of guests lined up for you tomorrow to talk National Signing Day because, as Greg and I have told you before, they know it a lot better than we do. Some portal news that we need to get to here on today's show. Alabama wide receiver Kobe Prentice, Greg, most likely going to hit the portal, along with DB Jaleel Hurley. So this is going to happen. Everybody's going to hit every team. But Kobe Prentice, a guy I know that a lot of people had a lot of high hopes for, and we've seen flashes of. And I know a lot of Alabama fans will hate losing him off that roster.
Yeah, and I look, he's a good player. But I don't think he's an alpha. I think in that receiver room, if you look at what they've had success with in the past, I've been around Kobe. I think he's a good kid. I think he's a hard worker. But they like bigger body wide receivers. And they already kind of have the guy in Ryan Williams that's slightly undersized. So probably don't need a guy that's kind of a carbon copy, just a lesser than version. So it probably makes some sense for him to move forward and to go elsewhere. And I'm sure the staff will be focused on trying to find a little more length at the position and a little more girth at the position moving forward.
So a couple other quarterbacks now going in, Greg. Texas A&M quarterback Connor Wigman saying that he has intentions of
going to the draft. Oh. Never mind. In the portal or the draft?
Portal first. Draft later.
But he was number one overall projection thanks to PFF. QB1.
It's just a one person's thought.
Okay.
He needs to get into a better system to showcase those skills to obtain potentially the number one overall spot.
I've been told that he wants to go to a playoff contender. So that means he's going to be going to someone in the FBS. Because think everybody can kind of make the playoffs now based on how things have gone in the past. So it'll be interesting, though, because I do think there are systems that suit him. I think he'd be good in a West Coast system. I think that would be a system that would make a lot of sense for him. Not a lot of like traditional West Coast out there, but there are teams that sprinkle in West Coast principles. I also think that he'd be a player that would do a nice job in an air raid style system. I could see him finding some success in a spot like that. So I'll be curious. It'll be interesting to see where he lands because I do think he's talented, but I don't think he has a huge arm. And not having a huge arm limits you in some cases. And he doesn't have crazy mobility either. So he's kind of like Miller Moss, except not as good as Miller Moss. You know what I'm saying?
So is he a guy that's worth bringing in to potentially be your starter?
Yeah, it just depends on what system you want to run.
Highly dependent on your system. All right.
Completely.
Stanford starting quarterback, by the way, Ashton Daniels going to hit the transfer portal. Your thoughts?
Seen him a couple times, got banged up at times. He's had some bright moments this year. He's got some mobility.
1,700 yards, 10 touchdowns, 12 picks in 11 games.
Yeah, and the picks have come in bunches too. So he would not be a guy that I'd be bending over backwards to try to bring in. The top three for me at the moment, Miller Moss, Caden Salter, and and Wigman would be kind of the top three. And all three of those guys, a little bit different system fits. So it'd be very situationally dependent. I think Ashton Daniels, though, if you need depth at the spot, would make some sense.
Where would Iowa quarterback Cade McNamara fall in there, as he apparently is letting people know today his intentions of entering the transfer portal?
He still has eligibility?
Apparently.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, it's like Coach Dilfer told us. I thought it was odd saying that Jacob Zeno's going to hit the portal, but yet he still has to go get that extra year of eligibility. He doesn't necessarily have it yet. So I can't imagine anybody's going to be running out there trying to grab him when we don't even know if you're going to get another year. McNamara may be in the same boat, trying to go get another year of eligibility. Kentucky defensive lineman Keyshawn Silver is going to hit the transfer portal. Florida edge defender Kelby Collins going to hit the transfer portal. Michigan's fired offensive coordinator Kirk Campbell. And Ohio State offensive tackle Josh Simmons, along with LSU tackle Will Campbell, have announced they'll enter the NFL draft. So a lot of portal news going on. A lot of we're still getting different coaching news, but it doesn't sound like you really have that wow quarterback on the board just yet. Or do you feel like maybe Miller Moss is that guy? I know you're confident in his skill set, but is he sort of a wow guy, like a must-have for just about anybody?
Miller Moss is my favorite guy in the portal. But if you are a little bit leaky along the offensive line, maybe that's of concern. You want that quarterback run element. I can see why people would be maybe leaning towards Caden Salter a little bit. That would make some sense. I don't think Caden Salter's quite the thrower that I would prefer. I like a guy that maybe is a little less dependent on moving around and a guy that's a little more capable of consistently winning from the pocket. But I think he's got some game. You know, I could see him being an attractive option. A place like Auburn would make some sense. I think for a guy like Caden Salter, where having mobility is very beneficial, but you also have to be able to make quick decisions, and it would make some sense if he ended up on the Plains. But if I were Alabama, like, I would be thinking about Miller Moss for sure. I mean, I think he can do a lot of the things that were done in the past. Doesn't have as big of an arm as Michael Penix, but who does? But I think he's athletic enough, and I think he can make some of the downfield throws that are required to be efficient in this offense.
What about North Carolina quarterback Connor Harrell? He's in the portal, or going to be in the portal.
Extremely athletic. He'd be a guy that if I would strongly consider trying to find a place for him at maybe a different position. I'd start him at quarterback, but at least I know with his athleticism, there is a possibility of position versatility. You know what I mean? So, like, he'd be a guy that I'd bring in as a quarterback and acknowledge that, okay, you can be a project quarterback for sure, but in the event in which you can't get on the field at quarterback, would you be open to taking the Ryan Tannehill route of, hey, go play receiver for a couple years, and then in a year, you can go be a quarterback? You know, or 2 years from now, you be a quarterback. I think that would make some sense for him, but very gifted athlete and a guy that, like, if I were Jack State, I'd love to have him. You know what I mean?
Fresno State quarterback Mikey Keene.
Accurate. Good, solid player. Very solid. Poor man's Dylan Gabriel.
Oh, a lot of people I think would probably be happy with that. Would take that. Texas A&M quarterback Jalen Henderson. Not sure how much you've seen him. He transferred from Fresno State.
He played a little bit in the bowl game last year, so you do have a little tape, but not enough to make a justifiable case.
Not somebody who's necessarily moving the meter and you're saying, hey, we got to go find a way to get that guy.
No, athletic. Look, I think he looks the part on the hoof. Like, I think he's really, really good looking. I think he's a big boy, can run around, but I think he only played in the bowl game that I can recall.
This was a little bit of a surprise to me yesterday. Hayes Fawcett was announced that LSU wide receiver C.J. Daniels is going to enter the transfer portal.
His season just wasn't what I expected it to be.
I would agree with that.
He's a solid player, but Aaron Anderson became their best weapon in the slot really, really quick. And CJ's solid. I mean, he's a solid football player. He's not a game changer. So if you need but maybe inside of him, that's exactly the same way I would have felt about Keandre Lambert-Smith prior to last season. Like, if you were to ask me before camp, and I think we had this conversation in the summer about Keandre Lambert-Smith. I would have said he's rock solid. You know what you're going to get. Like, I know his floor. I don't know his ceiling, but I know his floor, and what you're going to get is a very veteran, proven, productive wide receiver. He ended up being much better than that. Maybe that's the case for C.J. Daniels as well, because it just never materialized on the Bayou.
Here's an interesting name. ULM freshman running back Mott Hardy is planning to enter the transfer portal. 1,351 yards, 13 touchdowns. We had his head coach on the show. And if you recall, he talked about the recruiting process with him, stuck with them. I think he probably had a good idea that they weren't going to be able to hold on to him, but loved him. Loved how he played, loved what he does. Great kid, and had a very productive season. So that's a name from a school to watch. Maybe just a smidge undersized, but that I think a lot of people, and I've watched a couple of ULM games this year, I think a lot of people would be excited to get him. Nebraska true freshman quarterback Daniel Kalen. Relation to Cato or not?
I'm going to say no. Don't know for sure, though.
Okay. Not confirmed. I mean, I don't think we know here. True freshman quarterback, right, Greg? We haven't seen him play. It's like, is that going to be a great gift for somebody? How do we know?
Well, if I find out he's related to Cato Kalen, I'm going to pass.
Why? Whoa, hold on. What?
I don't go with Surfer Bros.
UCLA quarterback Justin Martin plans to enter the portal. 4-star in the 2022 class.
Hadn't seen the tape.
That's going to be a problem for some folks that maybe want tape before they try to get you to roll in there. But either way. All right, so a lot of quarterbacks are hitting the portal. Listen, there was a portion of yesterday that I sat down and I said, I'm going to try to organize a little bit for the show tomorrow. And after about 40 minutes, I threw my hands. I said, I can't keep up with this. It's literally too much. Like UCF offensive lineman Marcellus Marshall. I don't know what you're getting there. I can't find it. I don't know.
Oh, dude, he's got to have it. He's got to be following Gus to Florida State.
You know what? It'd probably be an upgrade for what Florida State had.
Wow. Stop it.
I mean, I'm letting you know.
How big? What are his measurables? Because I've been told if you're big along the offensive line, that helps you.
I'm going to have to go to the bio and try to check that one out. It looks like we are measuring in somewhere around, 6'5", 310. Interior offensive lineman, by the way. He's from Morgantown. So he's got to be tough, right?
I think so. I mean, you don't just come from Morgantown and not be tough.
Exactly. Let's take him. Let's go. I feel like this is how some of those conversations go. Has he got tape? No. 6'5", 310. Okay. What do they say about him? Mean streak. Where's he from? Morgantown High School. You know what? We don't have any guards. Bring him in.
We need that guy.
Can we afford him?
How much of your O-line eval comes from, does he come from a blue-collar town? If so, yes. If no, absolutely not.
It's towards the top.
All right, so I will only recruit offensive linemen from Monroe, Louisiana, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
You're going to get a good one.
Okay. All right, Cleveland, Ohio.
Mm-hmm. Keep going.
Des Moines, Iowa.
Anything Iowa.
Yeah, if it's Iowa, we're taking
Iowa,
it.
Nebraska. Yeah.
Come on down.
Yeah.
Yes,
Price
exactly.
right.
Any corn-fed killers
South
in the Midwest.
If they have attended
Dakotas, sure.
the Livestock Beef Fest, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Beef Days, Salon Beef Days. If they've attended Salon Beef Days, you're in.
Montana?
Yes.
Yeah.
Has he worked on a ranch? Has he baled hay? Yes. You're in. Let's go.
Done. Perfect.
Got it. We got a spot for you. You got a locker with shoulder pads.
All right, what about in the South? Outside of Monroe, which is by far per capita the best offensive and defensive line talent in the world.
I mean, I think there are most Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Mississippi, the majority of that, like, we're taking you. There's a handful of schools in some of those spots that I'd probably say, we're good. Mainly private, but yeah, not including New Orleans. But
obviously, well, yeah.
But most of those southeastern states, like I think we're pretty good. Like non-private schools in Memphis, yes, come on down, we're good. We'll take you. Birmingham Metro, sure. We'll make it work. Maybe one that we don't need. All right, we'll be back with more right after this. All right, 9:40, Wednesday, December 4th, right here on Jocks 94.5. Appreciate you tuning in, jocksfm.com. You can listen there. Apps in your app store, iPhone, Android. You can download it for free. If you're in North Alabama, Talk Radio 730 1039 FM, The Ump. Always appreciate you guys tuning in there as well. Have to wait for us to talk a little bit more college football, but Greg, one thing you never have to wait for is your dental care.
That's because Family Care Dental has you taken care of. They're the urgent care office where you can be seen the same day in 4 locations originally, but they've recently added a 5th in Hoover, Fultondale, Homewood, and Alabaster, but they've now added a 5th out there in Trustful. So those of you in the beautiful and awesome community of Trustful, go and check out the new Family Care Dental that is open near you. They can get you on Fridays and Saturdays. Most insurance plans are accepted, and they're accepting patients of all ages. So go and give them a shout today at Family Care Dental. They do a great, great job. I know you guys will be happy with the service that you receive at 874-9605. That's Family Care Dental, 874-9605.
All right. When you look at the college football playoff rankings, Greg, you said a little bit earlier in the show that you think Alabama gets in. Do you believe that that's essentially a lock right now, that the Crimson Tide's going to be in this college football playoff, not rankings, but be in the actual playoff?
Yes.
Doesn't matter how this game goes. Doesn't matter what the score is. Doesn't matter who wins. You think they're in?
I think the committee made a statement last night in pointing to Miami and saying, yes, they did. They didn't beat anybody. They have 0-1 against teams ranked in the top 25. All these other things. I think that will be held against Miami the same way it will be held against SMU. Now, do I think that's fair? Probably not. But I think it's more of a reflection on the ACC as a whole and the gap between the ACC, the perceived gap between the ACC and the SEC in the eyes of the committee. So I think it'll trickle down to SMU regardless of the outcome this weekend in the event in which they lose. So we'll see. But yeah, I think Alabama's in really good shape.
All right. So is there another game that shifts anything around at all? Like you look at the Mountain West game, it doesn't change the order of anything for you as far as if this is Boise or UNLV?
One, I think UNLV is going to win. So we'll start with that. Two, I just have a problem with Boise being where they're at. If you want my opinion, I think it's ridiculous that Boise's in position to get a first-round bye. Like, you cannot sit there and look at Boise's schedule. And the reason why they're held in such high regard is that they lost close to Oregon. But if you only had to play one Super Bowl type of game a year, like Boise's played for 15 years now, they're going to be up for that one, right? They're going to be up for that one. To me, they haven't played as difficult a schedule as even the Big 12 teams. The Big 12 should get the 4th seed, in my opinion. And because Boise had the easiest path in the regular season through their conference and ultimately their conference championship, assuming they win this weekend, they should have the toughest path in the college football playoff. That's how I see it. The more manageable your path was in the regular season, the more difficult your path should be in the postseason. And I don't feel like that's going to come to fruition, but it should. And the Big 12 should be ahead of the Mountain West champion.
Yeah, it's interesting to think if you look also at kind of that Boise schedule, 37-34 they lose to Oregon, but Washington State, we thought that might be a good one for a minute. They do have the win at UNLV. Of course, this will be a rematch. But there's just nothing else really, Greg, on that schedule that you look at and say, yes. No teams like San Diego State or Wyoming or Georgia Southern have really taken a step this year, even Utah State, for us to say, yeah, that's impressive. Like, I think when we saw the schedule at the beginning of the year and said, all right, Washington State, Oregon State, UNLV, there might be some teams, of course, Oregon, but we thought these might be some teams that by the end of the year could prop that schedule up just a little bit. There's just not a lot there. They didn't get Colorado State. I think that hurt. They didn't get Fresno State. I think that hurt. And those wouldn't be great wins by any stretch of the imagination, but they would help some. And it's just there's not a lot there when you're talking about a 3-9 San Diego State team or a 3-9 Wyoming team or a 7-5 San Jose State team. It's not enough. I agree with you to be where they are. And it goes back to what we said before about this committee essentially just leaning on overall record and not necessarily looking at how that record was attained a lot of the times.
Yeah, and that's, to me, troubling. I got immense respect for Boise State and their program and all that stuff, but the path and the gauntlet, quote unquote, using that term tongue-in-cheek a bit, does not exist. Their path has been manageable, and it needs to be acknowledged just how manageable it's been. So I'm not sure why they're getting as much credit as they are. I think they're getting credit for a loss, and I don't think you should ever get credit for a loss.
Absolutely. All right. Before we get out of here, I want to tell our listeners about Wayne's. And we know now it's getting chilly, it's getting cold. Your yard's going to head into dormancy, but before that thing comes back around to next spring, you want it to have the ability to look healthy, green, weed-free, lush. Wayne's can get you set with that. Wayne's can keep the termites out of your house. When it does warm up, they have the mosquito protection for you. But now the wildlife removal services from Wayne's. You have squirrels in your attic, under the house, maybe possum, raccoon coming in the garage. If you got birds that are getting into the garage or up in the attic, Wayne's can get rid of those. And wildlife prevention services to make sure it doesn't happen again, GMAC.
Yeah, I love that. The wildlife treatment has been terrific now that they've added that to their incredible arsenal of ways to help you. Go and check them out today at callwaynes.com. You can also call them at 866-WAYNES1. You'll be proud and appreciative of the services that you receive when you sign up with Waynes. Go check them out, callwaynes.com. Callwaynes.com or 866-WAYNES1. Let Waynes continue to create your happy place.
All right, when we come back, we'll get you a bad box score of the day and wrap it up on McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. All right, final segment of the show, closing out a Wednesday, December 4th, 9:50, Jocks 94.5. Watch on YouTube live every day. Search Jocks 945 there, and you can watch the show each and every morning.
Let me tell you about my buddy Ben Hedden of the Beham Realty Group. If you think about selling your home, and when it comes to selling, you only want excellence, you need to give my buddy Ben a call at 205-568-2705. Or visit the website at BehamRealtyCo.com. If you're struggling to get your house sold because the markets are changing every single day, you need an expert that focuses on adapting at half the time to make sure you and your squad come out on top. That's my buddy Ben Hedden at the Beham Realty Group. You can visit their website at BehamRealtyCo.com or give them a call at 205-568-2705.
All right, so let's get to our bad box scores of the day. We will go multiple, and we go to men's college basketball. Keep it pretty simple here for you. I think not going to be a lot of tricks, not going to be a lot of unknowns, not going to be a lot of uncertainties, but there will be bludgeonings.
Some absurdity.
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be, right?
That's one way to
we
put
get
it.
to each and every day. Yeah. So Do you appreciate more the bad box scores involving teams that we know or don't know?
Don't know.
I appreciate a bad box score no matter what.
The VMI.
Key debts.
Nice. Yes. So I think a lot of people would have said cadets.
Nah, key debts, baby.
Yeah. They just snuck past the Virginia Lynchburg, have already been in this year.
Yeah. The Colonels.
Are they the Eagles?
They're the Dragons.
2
days ago they were in this. 113-51.
Okay.
Men's college basketball. Your score at the half?
Double up.
60-23.
Oh, they got after it.
Triple up. Okay.
The Dragons shot 22 of 71 in the game.
They went cold.
That's 31%. They did shoot 19 threes.
How many did they make?
There we go.
3.
Okay. There we go.
Now they were out rebounded 59-35.
Okay, they at least hustle.
They limited the turnovers to 19.
Okay, so yeah, there's a silver
20.
lining.
It's teens.
Now, VMI shot 38-75 from the floor. That's 51% from the floor.
Sometimes it's just your game.
Yeah.
They shot 42 threes.
I like the way they play.
All right.
Do you like it even more knowing that they made 20 of 42?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
TJ Johnson, 5 of 13 from 3. Walker Andrews, 6 of 14 from 3. They were on fire.
Oh yeah.
Had 6 players in double figures. The Keydets did yesterday as they make their first appearance in this year's basketball season in our bad box score of the day. I'll be honest with you guys. VMI basketball, if in bad box score of the day, I might have anticipated that being on the other side.
Correct. That was
not going 20 of 42 from the 3-point line. But here we are.
Well, that one, maybe.
This is why we love it. The Maine
Bears?
Close.
Black Bears.
There you go. Just snuck past the Maine Augusta.
They're the Grizzlies.
Those are polar bears. It's Augusta. Polar bears.
I feel like this would be a Soldotna bad box score. The Maine Augusta Moose.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
The Black Bears had them for dinner with a 103-51 win.
Ooh. There we go.
Maine Augusta shot 19 of 53 from the floor.
Ooh.
Now, they made 5 of 17 threes.
That's reasonable.
Sounds like Landrum.
They did limit things to just 24 turnovers in the game.
Just 24.
Only
okay.
24.
That's not 25.
Now, they were out rebounded 48-26 in the game.
See, okay.
But Maine brought it. 44 of 79 from the floor.
They were hot.
Yeah,
they got hot.
Go.
They shot 23 threes. Oh, I'm going to say this. Only 23 threes in the game.
Respectful.
Because compared to 40, it's not quite the same.
Didn't want to build them out too bad.
They made 10 of 23 from behind the 3-point line.
Right.
Only went to the free throw line 6 times, made 5 of those.
Okay.
One area that did stick out to me in this bad box score of the day was the Maine Augusta Moose on the offensive end.
Oh, boy.
19 of 53 is bad.
Very.
4 offensive rebounds on 19 of 53 is disgusting.
That's disgusting.
Doubly bad.
A lot of cherry picking going on there. They're just not even getting down the floor, are they?
They don't want to.
They're just not even trying to get down the floor.
Lazy.
No, I feel like we're just sitting back there saying, you know what?
They're playing like Moose. They ain't no hustle, no nothing. Just
hold on.
Whatever.
If I'm not mistaken, Moose can get it when they start running.
They can, but they won't run. They were just sitting there grazing.
They just don't.
Yeah.
Well, these did not last night either.
No.
They chose not to. All right, finally, one more. We'll go to the women's side. The Iowa State
Cyclones.
Lady Cyclones.
I think they're just the Cyclones.
Oh, okay.
They took out the South Carolina Upstate.
They are the Panthers.
Spartans.
They are the Spartans.
Because they're in Spartanburg.
Not the downstate.
Ah, dang.
Spartanburg's Upstate went down 92-35 last night.
Oh, my.
Your scores by quarter 32-11. I don't know what happened in the second quarter, but it was 16-2.
Slowed the pace down.
They shot 15 of 48 from the floor, 3 of 17 from the 3-point line. They cut the turnovers down to just 30 for the game.
Okay, hey, that's not 50.
They were out rebounded 45-37.
Okay, see the hustle. They just missed shots.
But
I can accept that.
In the same facet, on that 15 of 48 shooting, just 5 offensive rebounds.
Okay.
Half-ass hustle.
Right.
Iowa State went 15 of 40 from behind the 3-point line, 33 of 76 from the floor as they got that 92-35 win over South Carolina Upstate. All right, we'll be back tomorrow with Wimp Sanderson. Talk National Signing Day recap next.